Good evening. Welcome to the Town Council meeting of Monday, May 8th, 2023, here at 7 p.m. in the McKinnon Council Chambers. Relative to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 20F, and for the benefit of the public, this meeting is being recorded by both video and audio methods. The first order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, second order of business is roll call. Councilor Adams is excused. Councilor Daniel is here. Councilor Dow.
Here.
Councilor Lazo.
Here.
Councilor Marchetti.
Present.
Councilor Montigny.
Present.
Councilor Rivas.
Present.
Councilor Ryan.
Present.
Councilor Steves.
Here.
We have 8 present and a quorum. Thank you. Item number 3, consider and accept the Town Council meeting minutes of Monday, April 24th, 2023.
So moved.
Second. We have a motion by Councilor Lazo, a second by Councilor Steves. Any consideration, discussion of the minutes? Councilor Steves.
Just a couple of minor ones. First off, I'll have to abstain since I wasn't here. But I noted that under item number 6, it mentions Mr. McCall. It should be Mr. Blanchard. And under item number 30, it's 1 point spells Jack Joban's name as Joval.
What number was that?
Number 30. And the first one was number 6.
Okay. Anyone else? Very good. All those in favor? Opposed? Abstain? 701. Minutes are passed. Item number 4, subcommittee reports. Department of Public Works, Councilor Marchetti.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We had a meeting on May 1st, 2023. On the agenda was tonight we talked about the deputy director position. We also talked about the salary schedule for the deputy director. We postponed the water and sewer budget. We approved the DPW budget, and we also had some discussion about road conditions in town. Our next meeting will be this Thursday, May 11th, in the Rice Room at 6 p.m., and that concludes my remarks. Thank you.
Very good. Education and Human Services, Councilor Montigny.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Today we had a meeting earlier today at 6 p.m. There's a couple of things on the agenda. We're looking to have another meeting on Wednesday, May 31st, because Education and Human Services has actually been tasked with adding to this education front that we're on and vetting the Thrive Act. So I've had the distinct privilege and honor from the chairman to draft up a letter that we can all vet together at Education and Human Services, and again at probably the town council meeting in June. But we're looking forward to that and anything else we need to get done to wrap up the year, probably again May 31st, Wednesday, 6 p.m. most likely. Thank you.
Very good. General Government, Councilor Steves.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We met on the 4th. There's a couple of items, numbers 15, 22, and 24 are on tonight's agenda, and we do not have anything currently scheduled.
Very good, thank you. Planning and Development is Councilor Adams. He's not here. We'll move beyond that. Protection of Persons and Property, Councilor Lazo.
No report at this time.
Thank you. Item number 5, Chairman's Announcements. The first item tonight is I'd like to mention that there are concerts on the Central Street Pedestrian Plaza in the Central Street parking lot here in Southbridge. Concerts are held basically on Friday evenings and Saturday evenings from around 6 o'clock. There's a...
5 and 6.
I'm sorry?
Oh, I'm sorry. They're actually at 5 and 6,
5?
depending on which day they're on. One's at 5, one's at 6.
Very good. Okay. If there is information available, if you contact your counselors, we've received emails on these, and we can give you particulars. The candidates for Town Council and School Committee will have a forum on Thursday night at 7 p.m. here in the Council Chambers. There are 8 candidates vying for 3 seats. Immediately following will be school committee candidates who will also address the voters in town. That's Thursday night, this coming Thursday night at 7 p.m. to start. There's a public hearing on the fiscal year 2024 town budget scheduled for Monday, May 22nd at 6 p.m. here in the council chambers. It's worth coming in to see what we're up to. It's people talk about the budget. This is where you get your chance to talk to the council about the budget directly. The last day to register to vote in the town election, scheduled for Tuesday, June 13th, 2023, is Friday, June 2nd, 2023, in the town clerk's office. She will have extended office hours that day, keeping the office open until 5 p.m. that evening. This is an important election, as evidenced by the large number of candidates looking to serve Southbridge in various capacities. I encourage you to view the candidates forum, be sure to be registered to vote, and then cast a ballot on the 13th. Lastly, but certainly not least, the library director is asking everyone to check the library website for a link to a survey to help with the library's strategic planning for the future direction of the library. They're looking for a large turnout of Southbridge voters to get a sense from the patrons of the library as to what directions people would like to see the library go into in the future. This is an important time for the library, and this is one way that you can help the library to know exactly what it is that you're looking for and what your needs are. So please go to the library website, check the link for the survey. And that's all I have. Item number 6, town manager's announcements. Mr. Manager.
The only thing I have, Mr. Chair, is just to thank all those who turned out on Saturday for the Southbridge Cleanup Day. I think it was a great success, and I'm very happy that it happened. Other than that, I have no other announcements.
Very good. Thank you. We have 2 presentations this evening. The first presentation is a performance update from Mr. Karen, Mark Karen.
Thank you. I think I speak for almost everybody here that we're much more interested in the presentation that comes after me than in mine, including me, quite frankly. I feel like the warm-up band for Aerosmith. No one's going to remember this, but I'm very much, we're 21 years in the making for this presentation, so I am going to be brief. I mean, of course, we'll answer any questions that you have, but congratulations on what's about to come. So in regards to numbers, I would just say that just a quick tally, we're down 3 occupants in the downtown core. One of them, though, I think you would agree with me, is we had looked to reduce our number of social services in the commercial spaces. One of those leaving is one in that category, and in one of the other vacancies, it is being replaced and actively pursued by a business to replace that, and that's in the phone store down by Edwards Block, Whitford Building. I'd like to just kind of bring your attention to some of the accomplishments or the occupancies that are taking place, or at least leases and letters of intent to occupy. And at the storefronts, it takes a little bit of time. We get to agreements, but then we have to get to the development of the storefronts. 2 of those, actually 3 of those, are on Hamilton Street. The improvements there are vast, and the neighbors, the business neighbors there, are kind of like, oh. So things are moving here, and it's inspiring to them to kind of continue on with their investments. But we have the 2 storefronts for the furniture store, which also lent itself to the refurbishing of the office space, if you look at those to the right, in what was kind of a boarded up old office space. I think there was a computer repair space, but the McCarthys have done a nice job of getting that up and ready to go. That program, by the way, just as it's a short deviation, I promise, is the furniture and the items there that are being sold are actually the products and the refurbishings of people who were involved in the program from Centros Las Americas, or Centros Inc. And that furniture refinishing is actually being done in a wood workshop down at 12 Crane Street, which is, as soon as it started, became too small and are looking for a larger space. I would just tell you that the guys that are involved there are looking to hone their skills, re-enter into the community in a more productive way than when they left, and some of those and some individuals just looking to hone skills in a more employable way. But the ownership and the pride that has taken place in those items will be reflected in the prices that they're able to get for these items there. But the transformation of the human being is it's kind of heartwarming to see. So Central Street, the old Billis's restaurant, which is soon to open as Honest Town Eats, is well underway in its evolution. It's got a nice vibe to it. There's reminiscence of the past. But it's also got the accommodations of a crowd that is looking for today's kind of feel. And I know it'll take us into the future. And there's some wonderful talent that is actually going to be employed on the flames behind there and the food offerings. Our social services and religious occupancies in downtown, I think I just referred to the U-Wink. U-Wink has left Main Street and are now occupying a building that they had purchased in the AO complex. Active conversations with a number of the religious organizations on Main Street are ongoing and being met with potential suitors for their relocation. Some of those efforts are within purchases. Some of them are just in rents in places outside of the downtown core and outside of the commercial spaces that they currently occupy. And so those are going along very well. Those conversations are with the entities themselves, the churches, looking to relocate to places more conducive to their services. Some of the stakeholders downtown, though, also are reassessing, and again, in a very humane way, of the lease holdings that they do have. And before they go in resign and renew, they're having conversations and are engaged with our office in trying to, again, in a gentle but effective way, find other spots for them to occupy and conduct services. The events, I think, were mentioned in the chairman's announcements, but we're happy to report, I guess, if not repetitively, that the mural project has commenced. The lift is there as of, I think, yesterday, and the preparation on that wall is now underway, along with the concerts on Central, which started this weekend past, and I would encourage everybody to go out. There's been a wonderful effort, Peg, in the grant writing, to be able to produce these events is wonderful, and our intern Joe has been ardent at work in getting these things scheduled, and it's got a nice feel to it, and I know the citizens, all of us, will enjoy the offerings that are down there. And these are to complement. It's kind of like a precursor to the concerts that happen down the Common. Our series will be over, I say ours, but these series on Central Streets will be over in June as the concerts down on the Common start up later in June. In the area of marketing, we are engaged heavily. Tomorrow would be a tour of downtown and some opportunities. Quinsigamond Community College has asked in a very forward and a visioning exercise to enhance their visibility and their reach to an adult learning population. So we're conducting that, and we're kind of happy that they're forward thinking as we look to options for our adult learners. The historical district, there's been some great conversations with both the members of the historical committee in their efforts to create and establish a historic district. Some of the conversations among some of the stakeholders have been in opposition. These meetings are taking place, and for further explanation of what the goals and ambitions of the committee are, and I'm really, it's good and encouraging to see that as we answer these questions, the opposition and the resistance is actually coming down. And I can't say with any certainty because no one has taken their opposition off the board, but they are actually offering recommendations for some language changes so that they would be more amenable for them to support. And I do think that that's in the process of happening, along with garnering more support. First interview, I think we had made mention some time ago that there was an effort, at least in our image uplift, an effort, at least on my part, to, and a suggestion, I should say, on my part, to start a series, especially within our social media markets and the page holders and the administrators of those pages, to get a kind of a series of where are they now kind of going. And our first interview has happened, an old friend of Southbridge, much younger than I, but Josh Prue, I think is a name probably familiar to a few people on this dais. And that's happened, and we're putting the finishing touches on it, hopefully for a first submittal. The idea of the program, and I don't mind lending it to you here, is in my thought, is that even though this is done, and I commissioned it, which is fine, but it would be nice if it was sustainable from a member of the high school, ideally in their junior year, to take on these interviews of individuals. And as they progress into their senior year, there's kind of a reach back to get the next interviewer on. And so that these individuals, as they're going through our education system, are looking back at some of the successes and the interests, the human interests of those who went before them. That part of it has not been accomplished yet, but that is my intention, and I state it publicly so you can hold me accountable to it, and other parties, hopefully. And I guess there's taking an inventory of, if anybody was taking an inventory of benches in back of Edwards Block, you'd find that there's one missing. But before we rush to judgment and think that there's it actually was taken out of there on purpose and brought to Bay Path, and it has been refinished. They did a beautiful job, and it'll be replaced soon. I don't know if we're going to have enough time before the end of the school year to get the other 6 benches done, but that is one of the goals. If it's not, it'll be done shortly after. But the Southbridge Business Partnership has started talks along with our office to maybe find adopters of benches, so that it does 2 or 3 things. It kind of gives some ownership to those areas, of those sitting spaces in our comfort areas in the downtown, and also does some promoting and some pride enhancement. So I leave you with that. I would also just say on a self-critical note that there is still room for a greater communication between this building and our business partners. I say that recognizing that I have my own efforts to kind of enhance and strengthen. And then I think everybody, and again, I just say this with some of the events and some of the conversations of the recent past, that people are very much looking forward to something more of a consistent pathway to permitting. And I know we're engaged in that. I don't mean to browbeat anybody, but just to say that it's going to be welcomed heavily. So those are my comments for tonight.
Good. Councilman Montigny.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Mr. Karen. I'm sorry if you said this earlier about the mural. Was there some sort of wrap-up date that they were hoping to have it completely redone and painted by?
Yeah, June. By the end of June.
The whole thing?
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes.
Fantastic.
I'm posing for the. No, I'm not posing.
Okay.
I think Councilor Lazo is probably higher in the running than I am on that. Sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Karen.
Thank you.
Councilman Marchetti.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through you. Just a couple questions. I really appreciate you coming here and giving us an update. At least once a month you've been doing this, and I do appreciate that. I just have a couple questions. First of all, I believe the address is 310 Main Street where the building burned down. What is going on with that? Is somebody going to build something there? Is there anything in the works for that? I know at the last meeting you said they had installed some water lines.
Yeah.
But what about the building there?
Yeah.
Are they going to do something?
Yeah, that parcel's been purchased. There are plans. The artist renderings are already in hand, It'll be a proud offering. This utilities that we were looking to get there, and in kind of some hand-holding, it's one neighbor delayed some of their progress to get this in to make it so we didn't have to dig up twice or cause discomfort. But yeah, yep.
And then the building across from the RMV has been sitting vacant for quite a while. I know there was supposed to be a marijuana business
Yeah.
go in there, but I don't think that's going in there anymore. At least I haven't seen any activity. Do you know what's going on with that?
Yeah, that's frustrating that it's not in use. This board or this panel had offered and extended a host community agreement. I do not believe that has been rescinded yet, so it is still kind of held in abeyance. Please, there's probably somebody better qualified to answer that in detail than me, but that is my understanding. And
So you've had no discussion with the owners at all about that building?
the Patels, Councilor Adams would have a better handle on that.
Okay. And then the bank there, I know that we just voted to put some
Yeah?
sprinklers in, and what's going on with that?
Congratulations.
Have they started that yet, or?
They're looking for contractors now. Yep.
Okay.
So it's been awarded, and that's about to move.
And so that's going to be like an office building?
I'm sorry, the old credit union?
Right.
No. There's, there may be some offices in the upper floors, but it is intended to have a food and coffee, a lounge type of offering on the first floors.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm all set. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else? Council Oswald.
Mark, thank you very much for being here tonight. I meet you on site quite a bit on some of these projects when things aren't moving too quick. They want to move a little quicker. I like the comments on streamlining permitting and, the welcome wagon supposedly to businesses that want to come into Southbridge. I think that's good for openers. The credit union is going to be a multi-use building.
Yeah.
I know who bought it, and I heard that the plans are going to be coffee shop, restaurant. There are so many offices, and the way the parking lot wraps the building, it can be used for multi-use. But catering to some of the people coming into town opening businesses, same person, somebody bought the old art spa. They want to activate that. There are people interested, and I think that you're doing a fine job as far as trying to attract, and not only attract, but when they walk in the door to be the face, somebody from economic development, you and Peg, to be there. I know Adams works hard on it, but to be there to streamline, or basically to have the honey-do list ready for what does Southbridge expect of them.
Yeah.
And the more they understand that, the more they'll figure out that maybe you want to be here, maybe we need to make some changes on our side. But whatever it takes, I'm here to serve.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I hate to admit it, but sometimes an OG face is good to have conversations with as people come into town. Individuals like yourself, Counselor, and myself, unfortunately, I'm in the same category. I don't mean that as just because of age, not because of anything else. But, ingrained in us or inherent in us is a history, and we know what the processes and progresses and evolutions have been, where we know where we could probably streamline and where we want to go. We also know where we have been and what has stood in the way, and that's not to say we still don't have our efforts in front of us, but I think we're in the right path, and again, just to have that institutional knowledge. Hey, what am I getting into? People have choices. Business investors have choices. Business people have choices. And whether it's this town, and it's what is the character? What am I dealing with? Or is it the town next door? Or is it somewhere else? We all have every community has a psychology, so to speak. Mm-hmm. We have our own, and what we're not pleased with, we try to change and enhance it. And what we feel we're doing well, we try to just bring it up one other notch. I couldn't agree with you more. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very good. Anyone else? Very good. Thank you, Mark.
All right. That's you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Our second presentation this evening is on the rail trail design by the BSC Group.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Let's see. Sorry, where did you say it is, Bill? While he's pulling up the presentation, I'm Jeff Vassar with the BSC Group out of Worcester, Massachusetts. And with me tonight is Bill Paley, one of our traffic engineers. And we've been fortunate to be working with you on the design of the Quinnebog Valley Rail Trail. And we've been asked to come tonight to give you an update on where we stand on the project. So first of all, very briefly, just a reminder on the goals of the project. Obviously, as a rail trail, it's a recreational facility. It really helps with community health and wellness. Other thing we want to make sure is in the design of this, that it is a safe trail for all people in the community to use. In addition to the recreational amenity of just using the trail itself, it'll provide opportunities for possibly some special events, certain things to happen throughout the year that are recreational oriented but are kind of make use of the trail for some special activity. Kind of building off of what Mark talked about earlier, we really see this as a catalyst for economic kind of revitalization or continued revitalization of the downtown area with the trail coming right through the downtown. We want to make sure the trail is designed and takes the opportunity to highlight cultural and environmental resources along the railroad corridor, really create a sense of place, which I'll talk about more in the downtown area, minimize impacts to abutters, and then overall it helps link other resources in the community so that people have other ways of getting to parks, open spaces, museums, etc. Certainly they can drive, they can use sidewalks, but this is another way to circulate around town. And we hope the school department will make use of this for educational opportunities, certainly from an environmental perspective, but in a number of different ways, especially as the cultural and historic resources are highlighted. So it's a very long trail, and I apologize, this map is not easy to read because it's so long, but as you know, it goes from the Westville Dam area in Southbridge through town and all the way down to Dudley. For a good portion of this, it follows an old rail bed, but for that rail bed kind of stopped at the River Crane Street area, and from there on, we have recommendations for connections up to the Westville Dam area. So I'm going to go through this quickly, turn it over to Bill to talk about some of the technical issues, but we're certainly happy to answer any questions you may have. So first of all, this is that map starting in Dudley to the lower right. This initial section of the trail will be on the rail bed from Dudley up to the American Optical complex roughly. So we're building the new trail on the rail bed that's there. Once we get to American Optical, we stay on the rail bed to go by American Optical to the Rotary by the Common. I don't know if you can see that little circle there. And then further on up to the Dresser Street residential complex. And I bubbled this area out because we stay on the rail trail. We will put a new bridge over Morris Street so people can go over Morris. There was not enough funding in place to build a bridge over Main Street at the Rotary. So that'll be a future phase. And all along it was thought that parts of this project may need to be implemented in phases. Unfortunately, with costs escalating in the last few years, and even though the good chunk of money was obtained for this, we're still short on that, the money needed for that bridge, which is about a $1.8 million price tag associated with that. So what we're doing at the American Optical facility, it's Franklin Realty owns a parking lot on East Main Street across from where the new housing just went in, and there's going to be more housing going in there. We've talked to Franklin Realty. They've allowed for the trail to go adjacent to their parking lot and connect down to East Main Street there. So as people come up from Dudley on that trail, they'll be able to get off the trail there and navigate along Main Street around the Rotary and then get back up on the trail by the Dresser Hill residential area. Because there isn't the bridge over Main Street, those are the two access points to the trail, which we want to have anyway. We want areas where people can jump on and off the trail at various points. So those will be part of the project. Then as we move into downtown, this bubble goes from, again, the Dresser Hill residential all the way up to River Crane. Right in the middle is the old depot. And as you know, with the roadway improvements going on there, we've tied into those roadway improvements. I'll talk a little bit about how that really central part of downtown and the trail will really be highlighted as part of this project. Once you get to River Crane, that roadway is always also being designed to accommodate bikes and peds, but until that is constructed, will be on-road, what we call an on-road trail that will follow River Street to Mill, to West, where there's construction going on now, up to the West Street School, down to the fields, and then tie into the trail along the river and up to the Westville Dam. So we're tying together a number of resources and making critical connections where those connections don't exist now. The typical treatment of the trail will be a 10-foot wide trail. In some places, we don't have 10 feet. It's going to be narrowed to 8, but we're not going to get any tighter than 8 feet wide, and there'll be about a 1-foot shoulder on both sides. In the areas where it'll be on road, the roadway conditions vary. So on Mill and River, we're looking at what's called a share-row, which is where the travel lanes for vehicles are shared with bicycles, and that's what those little symbols on top of the arrows signify. Parts of Crane, as part of the new design, there will be an off-road or an adjacent shared use path for bikes and peds along River and Crane, where there'll still be the 2 travel lanes. What we'd like to see along Mill and River Street are dedicated bike lanes adjacent to the vehicular travel lanes. I'm sure, as you also know, there's design work being done on Mill Street now associated with the bridges, and we're trying to work with that designer to see if a better bike and ped accommodation could be done as part of that project. As I mentioned, downtown, where the depot is, and the trail comes right through the heart of downtown. This is the depot location, that brown building there, and we've come up with a design for the green area adjacent to the depot building where the tracks are and the current rail car is, to make that a park. That's in the budget. So it's a place where people can get on and off the trail, stop and rest. We hope there'll be other businesses that crop up around this location so people could get a drink, a bite to eat, maybe even bike rentals in this area. We want to highlight the depot and the rail car, and maybe even see if we can get a second rail car in there, because those could become cafes or businesses that could kind of support use of the rail trail. On the right side, there is another green area. That is a park that's being put in as part of the Hook, La Rochelle, Central, that big project. So that is already programmed in for that project. But the trail will go through all of these locations, and you can see the trail's a bit colorful in this artist rendering, we'll call it, but maybe some special treatment of the surface of the trail to really highlight it in the downtown area, draw attention to it. I think this will be a fantastic for the downtown in a number of different ways. At the downtown location and other key locations where people may be getting on and off the trail, these are called trailheads. There will be kiosks with information about the trail, where it goes, kind of rules of use of the trail. As I mentioned earlier, we want to highlight the cultural, historic, and environmental features along the trail. We will be working with other designers that are currently working with the town for wayfinding and signage to make sure we have a uniform treatment in a way that highlights certain things along the trail. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Bill to talk about a little bit more about the technical details of the trail.
Good evening. Jeff referred to the typical section, the width of the trail. So I want to go through some other scenarios along the abandoned rail bed. The photo on the left is a typical application where we've got a normal typical section, and it's an 8 to 10 foot wide, but that we've got shrubs or brushes or trees on either side, so we're going to leave those in place and really just treat the shoulders. Then we've got other situations where we've got to treat the upper right, treat a situation where it's steep slopes, possibly, or the river's on that side. So we're going to be addressing it, not only the trail portion of it, but also addressing the shoulder and the slope. We may need a section of fence, a timber rail fence, or some other material to make that section of the trail safe. But majority of the trail is going to be that bottom right, which is going to be maintaining the existing abandoned rail bed as it is, and really just treating the surface with gravel and maintaining that width where we can, if possible. Not making it wider, not making any less than 8 feet. This is just an image of the Morris Street Bridge. So the existing structure is going to remain along with the foundations. And what we're proposing is a structure that will look like this. It'll be parabolic. It'll be a prefabricated steel structure, painted. So it'll be protected. It'll have ADA compliant railings, I believe a wood deck, and it'll basically span over what you just saw, but it won't touch the existing structure. So the idea is to kind of span beyond the existing abutments, leave what's there, let sleeping dogs lie, and then and maintain that structure as its own independent structure on its own independent foundations. So it'll have to be a little bit longer than what's there now. So in the future, if the town decides to remove the existing structure, they can do that without impacting the existing structure or the new structure. And the photo or the image on the bottom right just kind of show you that it's going to be a 10-foot clear width inside, so that provides enough width for two folks to pass each other or two bikes to pass each other if they want to stay on them, or if someone's looking over the railing, someone can get around them. So it's a comfortable width, and it doesn't break the bank by going to a really wide structure like a 12 or something wider. So this project, a majority of this trail, as you've heard before, I've been up here before, is along an abandoned rail bed. So with that, there's a potential of having contaminated soils. So there's two pieces to this. One is guidance. What are we going to use for guidance? And what I've referred to before, is Massachusetts DEP, Department of Environmental Protection, created a guide 2 decades ago where they provide guidance for 4 different types of scenarios. I've listed them here. You've got a residential undeveloped right-of-way, stations and crossings, industrial corridors, switching and repair yards. Well, we only have the first one. We only have a residential undeveloped trail going through a residential or undeveloped area. So that's the one that applies here. And then Mass DEP created what we call BMPs, best management practices. How do we approach the project and have it not break the bank or have it create a lot of headaches? So there are several goals of the BMPs. One is to promote rail trail conversions that are healthy and cost effective. 2, recognize the presence of a contaminant, hazardous material along that corridor if there is any. 3, expedite the trail development, prevent or minimize risk to users, prevent exposure to any contaminants, and there's different ways that we can do that. And then finally, prevent off-site migration of contaminants, like rain runoff, so we want to basically keep it on site, protect it, control it, and not have it become a problem down the road. So that's the first part of this, guidance. So we're referring to Mass DEP and Mass DOT for guidance. Second part of this is practice. What are we going to do out in the field? So there's really 3 situations. One is pre-construction, which is where we are now. We're in design. Second is construction phase. That's about to happen later on this year. And then the last piece of it is post-construction, or once construction ends sometime in 2024. So what are we doing now? So pre-construction, we've identified trailheads, access points, the types of users, what does it look like at the different entrances and exits to the trail, who's going to be using it, how are they going to be using it. And so that's one thing that we've been looking at as part of the design. Second is we want to minimize excavation. We don't want to be ripping through the trail if we don't have to. Leave it where it is, just like the Morris Street Bridge. Third thing is establish the type of trail surface. So is it gravel? Is it asphalt? Is it a combination of both? And it is all three. So we've got sections through the downtown that are paved, sections in the rural areas that are gravel, just like it is today in Dudley. So we're going to try to maintain that look coming up from Dudley into Southbridge. So that's kind of what we're doing now. The last thing of the pre-construction is where I come in and Jeff comes in, where we want to use pay items or items of work, create really tight specifications that comply with DEP requirements, that make sure that when the contractor builds this project, that they're adhering to guidelines set forth by Conservation, Mass DEP, EPA, and make sure that we're going to meet all those standards. And that means that's where we come in as engineers. We develop an ironclad specification, make it tight, be conservative, make sure that there are no holes, no loopholes, and make sure that the contractor does what they're supposed to do. The construction phase will happen this fall after the project's bid, and that's where we've got to be out there, or an engineer needs to be out there along with the town. First thing they need to do is contain everything. Silt fence, hay bales, straw bales, make sure that all the drainage is protected before construction starts. Then again, minimize excavation. You can put it on plans to minimize, but when we get out into the field, we've got to make sure that the contractor isn't doing more than they should or what they shouldn't do. So that's monitoring, making sure that they're adhering to the specifications and the guidelines and the plans. And then also during construction, again, it's monitoring and making sure that they adhere to it. Post-construction is a little bit down the road. That's in 2024. That really is it's a partnership between the town, conservation, and other advocates to make sure that whatever was installed as part of the construction, it gets maintained that way. And if something does change, we all get our heads together and figure out the plan to move forward. So it's long-term planning to make sure that stuff doesn't get washed off-site or a condition doesn't change along the trail. So as part of this project, right now, Mass DOT Rail Division owns the property. So the town is in the process of coming to an agreement with the state to basically transfer or provide an easement to the town. We call that a long-term easement. So there's two easements going on. One is we need a short-term easement to get onto the railroad property to do 2 borings for the Morris Street Bridge. So we've submitted that application to DOT. They're reviewing it. That was submitted in March. Once they review it and they give permission, then the geotechnical engineers and the driller can get on site in one day, do those borings, and then we have enough information to design that bridge. So that's short term. Second thing is a long term. We call it a 99-year lease. It's basically DOT saying to the town, it's yours for 99 years or forever. And so it's a similar application, but we've got to provide right-of-way plans, which we've done, and we submit that to DOT. We did that on April 18th, and it's currently under review as well. So once that approval process is done, then the lawyers get involved and they work out the language, and both sign the agreement, and then it belongs to the town. So we've done that piece of it. Back to Jeff.
Thank you, Bill. Just a couple more to wrap up here. And as you know, we appeared before you about a year ago to get your support to submit the grant application to get funding for this project. Peg Dean's done a great job of getting money from a number of different sources to pay for this. There's a total of about $4.1 million for this project. Right now, the cost estimate for the construction of the trail and the on-road portions is $3.285 million. The current estimate for the park and trail around the depot in the heart of downtown is about $500,000. So that equals a total construction project of about $3.785 million. We like to have a contingency, so as of any type of site construction, things may come up, so we've got a $300,000 contingency, which puts us right about at the 4.1 million which the town has available to them. I know you are all very concerned about the cost of any soil issue that may show contamination. So as Bill mentioned, we've tried to minimize that by leaving the stone that's there is called the ballast from the old rail bed. Leave that ballast in place and cover it. In areas where we do need to move some dirt around, we're going to keep it within the project area. And if you don't haul it off site, DEP will let you move it from one part of the project area to another. That's all along that corridor there. That's part of our plan. And also as part of the bid package, we are asking contractors to include a price for the removal of a certain number of cubic feet of soil if contaminated soil is encountered and needs to come off the site. So that'll be part of their bid. We've got the $300,000 if something unusual happens in any part of the project. And we also have designed the project so that there are some alternates. So if something unusual comes up, we can move some money around, take it away from the less priority. Or if bids come in great, you've got alternatives to actually do more work along the corridor. Right now, we're on schedule to get the final design done by the end of June, which is one of the requirements of one of the funding sources. Bidding would happen mid to late summer so that a contract could come back to you for approval September or October, so construction can start in the fall. It will certainly go through all of 2024. I think we have a little bit of time, I'm looking at Peg, past 2024 if we need it, but we're really going to try to push everything to get done in 2024. So that's what we have. We're really happy to give you an update on this. This is going to happen, finally going to happen. But Bill and I are here to answer any questions you may have.
Councilor Steves.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One thing I was concerned about is if you can explain a little bit more about what you're going to do with the ballast on the surface, because it is it's basically ankle breaker in the section that goes toward Dudley at this point, and it's kind of settled on its own over the years, but it's not exactly all that accessible for people who have unless you have really good bike tires or if you're walking on it, it can be a bit of a hazard. So how are you going to address that?
So again, we're going to, where we can, leave that in place because it's a good base material for a new surface to be placed over it. And wherever we can, we're going to smooth out called the ballast, smooth it out in place. If there are what we call organics in it, soil that's in it, things growing in it, those will be removed. Then we'll put a filter fabric over that. And then we'll put stone dust on top of that. Bill described it as gravel, stone dust. There's a material for trails that goes on top of that about 4 inches thick. Downtown, where there'll be more foot traffic, we're going to pave over the top of that. There won't be filter fabric. There'll be gravel and pavement on top of that because we expect a lot more use downtown.
Right. Okay.
So it'll be a very smooth surface.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Councilor Marquetti.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through you. Thank you for the update. Appreciate it. As far as the Morris Street Bridge goes, I was hoping someday we would be able to remove that entire structure. I live up that way. When I come down there in the wintertime, it's a very hazardous area with the ice underneath that bridge. I don't recall that as being part of the program, but like I said, at some point, I thought somewhere down the road, we could remove that entire brick structure. It seems to me that someone has decided they wanted to put a bridge over it. Drive there in the wintertime, and you will see how hazardous it is. But that's all I have. It's just a comment. Thank you.
If I can comment on that, as Bill mentioned, we need Mass DOT's approval before we can get up on the rail bed and do soil borings on both sides of the current bridge to see how the new bridge will come in. We're presenting a conservative approach here tonight. That bridge may stay there depending upon what we find, but if we've heard before that it would be great if that bridge could be taken out, so that's still something we're looking at, but until we have those, know what the soil conditions are, we don't want to present that as a given. We have to make sure we have all the information we need, but we certainly understand and have heard about all the issues associated with that narrow roadway and that bridge, so If we're able to remove the bridge, you'll get a little more clearance there too, but it's still going to be tight from the abutments.
I'm all set, thank you.
Councilor Rivas.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Just following up on Councilor Steve's questions around accessibility, just making sure that where you're talking about the entry points, there is accessibility, like ADA compliant accessibility for people who use wheelchairs, and then thinking about accessibility, like language accessibility in the kiosks, and just kind of thinking about like signage. We have a lot of elderly people in our community, making sure that the visibility, the text on the signage, just thinking about all of that, is that something that is part of sort of the planning?
Yep. Very good comments. One is a requirement of the grant we received, everything needs to be universally accessible. So when we're looking at these connections to the trail from Main Street or from Walnut Street, those will all be under 5% grade, which makes them accessible. The surface we're talking about, the stone dust surface, has been determined to be acceptable by the state's ADA community, so that's accessible. When it comes to kiosks and signage, you make a very good point. We haven't actually designed the signage yet. We'll be working with the town on that. Our charge is more, what's the structure going to look like?
Right.
So all your concerns about language and different languages and Braille and different ways to read will be taken into consideration. One thing that we have found very helpful lately is use of the QR code, because then people can click on that and hear things in different languages or read them in different languages very easily. But obviously not everybody has a mobile phone, and not everybody knows how to use that. So we need to be as universally accessible as possible.
Right.
Thank you.
Very good. Councilor Lazo.
Just like to say, good presentation, long overdue. I think a lot of the community that started this project had high hopes, and then it seemed to die off, and everybody thought it wasn't going to go. And then councilors, Peg Dean, Planning Development, Town Manager, all said, we could do this. And they did it. And then all of a sudden, now it's here, looking forward to it. I too share the same concern with that bridge, because I remember they removed the bridge on the other side because the 18-wheelers just kept getting stuck under the bridge all the time. So I'm moving forward. I think maybe as a community, we might have to look at that through Peg Dean and Town Manager as the project goes through. It's much like the rail when it comes to the rail station. There's going to be a lot of construction in that area that has nothing to do with the rail trail, but it's all tied in. I commend the Center of Hope. They're way ahead of the curve on this one. They put an ice cream stand, 2 great parking lots. They're talking about charging stations, a stop off at that point. We're looking forward to dealing on the other side of the tracks on some of the businesses and stuff. So I think it's all positive. I think it's going to be a good economic development pump to some of the areas, and looking forward to working with you.
Councilor Ryan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, I just want to say also thank you for this presentation. You guys have been extremely professional and thoughtful and detail-orientated through this entire project, and it's been greatly appreciated. I'm particularly really excited about the investments that are going to be happening in the Hamilton Street, Crane Street area, and the amount of economic development that can happen around there. That's an area of our town that's been disproportionately disadvantaged for a long time. So I'm eager to see what more we can do to give back to that community. It's my stomping grounds, it's where I live, so I'm just excited as somebody who enjoys the outdoors and nature to provide those opportunities for families here in town. We need more opportunities for kids to get out, get off their phones, get away from social media, and just go out and have fun. And this is a great opportunity. So this has been a Get Stuff Done Council, and I'm really excited that we got a big project that we've all been talking about for so long finally here. Thank you.
Anyone else? Councilor Steve.
Hi again. A couple of quick questions while I was thinking about them. I was curious about, you mentioned earlier that the DEP doesn't have any issue with switching areas, and does that include the areas that are right beside AO and there's an area down going toward, across the street from Big Y that do have some switching capabilities. I don't know if that qualifies as a switching area, just for clarification, from a DEP point of view.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, there's sections of the trail or the corridor that have switches. So
Yeah,
it's like you get the main line and then you get the siding. So there could be some opportunities there to, one, use it as a educational. You could leave it there and you could accentuate it, or you could use it as an area to put material that you may have excavated somewhere down the trail. But I've also have experience with using some of that material in the shoulders.
Okay.
Or in the slopes. So it's, and when I mentioned mitigating, it's really about, I mean, the project may have low level or nothing.
Good.
So that's what the hope is.
Right.
But we don't want to go there. So if we do have any material, we put it in a place where no one's going to be sitting on it, or, you put it in a location where you need it.
Okay.
And then you basically cap it.
Okay.
And so make it inaccessible. So, but yeah, I think I've walked the trail many, many times, and I'm confident there's a lot of places where we could use that material effectively and leave it on site.
Okay.
And still create a safe facility.
That's great. Okay,
Yeah.
good.
I also want to add to your previous question, the Grand Trunk Trail in Sturbridge, we had two types of gravel that we used. One was a more coarser material that was the base,
Okay.
and then the top course was a real finer gravel.
Okay.
So that's what the trail from Dudley to River is going to be,
Okay,
more of that. So if we put any material down, it's going to be very fine. It'll grab, and it'll be ADA compliant. You'll be able to either wheelchair will work over it, or bike,
Okay.
or it won't be loose gravel is what I'm saying.
Okay,
but if
good.
you have a chance, go see the Grand Trunk Trail, because that's what it will look like.
In Sturbridge, I've seen it, yes.
Yeah.
And the other question I had is, if you could clarify a little bit, I remember you were originally talking about switchbacking up to the rail bed from the rotary. And then I remember there was some discussion about taking it off of the rail bed there and going up Walnut Street instead of up that way. And so I was curious if you could clarify a little bit how you plan on doing that on both sides of Morris Street, especially if you don't end up having, if you do end up having the bridge there, then you can obviously extend it a little bit farther.
Right.
But I remember the original idea was to have them come down on the east side of the bridge and kind of basically go under the bridge.
Yep.
But that doesn't sound like what you're doing.
Correct. So I also want to clarify one thing. As you approach what I call the Rotary Bridge, prior location, the trail will continue to where the old bridge was, and there'll be overlooks on both sides. Okay. Overlooks were always planned to be in that location because you get some great views from that location. So we're going to do that as part of this project. The switchbacks to go from, there were options of getting from that higher elevation where the overlooks will be down to the common level through switchbacks on both sides. Again, that's more money, it's retaining walls, and it all depends on how much more money the town may be able to get for a bridge and or switchbacks in that area. But that's why we're jumping off further south by AO and the new housing complex, and north of the bridge by the Walnut Street and the Dresser Hill apartment area there, because those are easy connections to make now. Those are connections we always wanted. So that's what the funding right now can support. I also want to make the point, there's a question about ADA. If you go behind, are they called the Dresser Hill Apartments? Whatever they're called. If you go behind that building, the slope drops off and then it comes back up to the rail trail. Yeah. This material that we've talked about that we may have to remove in other parts of the trail, that's going to go there to fill in that depression so that the trail will then be from the rail bed a very gentle slope up to the back of those apartments. We don't have to go down and then back up. So that will help with that connection you're talking about, making sure we have ADA, and it'll be an important connection to that community also.
Oh, thank you. Councilor Eagles.
I just wanted to go back to one of the slides you were showing, the bike lanes. We have a lot of young people that ride their bikes. And then you had mentioned like the preferred is a dedicated bike lane and that there might be shared lanes. I'm trying to I'm a really visual learner, so I'm just trying to visualize how that would look, and also like how would that be messaged so that young people on their bikes understand what sections are shared with other vehicles and what sections are sort of dedicated for them.
Bill's our, it's called a complete street. He's our complete street expert. So I'm going to let him answer that question. But in a minimum, we want to have a sidewalk along one side. And I don't know if you have a local ordinance that says people can't ride bikes on sidewalks, but kids are going to be comfortable riding on a sidewalk. Some adults are very comfortable riding with vehicles, and that's what the top option is. But it doesn't mean everybody has to ride in a roadway. So Bill, if you could explain the different options.
So there's three ways to approach it. It's a three-prong attack when I look at things like that shared use. One is markings. So you see the markings on the pavement. You get those sharrows. Sometimes you see a super sharrow that's kind of like reverse, double. It really says, hey, this is a shared space. We don't do it on highly trafficked or traveled roadways or high speed. So river crane areas, low speed. It can be controlled. It's not like 2 lanes in each direction. It's 1 lane in each direction. So it's pretty clear, the pavement markings. Second is signing, as you said. So it's advanced signing. It's clear, it's not confusing, and it's letting folks know that, hey, this is what's happening, not just as a driver, but also as a pedestrian or user. Third thing is education. So there's different ways to do it. When I was working for a municipality, we had little postcards, and on one side was education for a driver. This is how a sharrow works, and this is what it means to yield. And on the other side is for someone who's on a bike or a pedestrian. Hey, it's not just all about you. You got to coexist in the same space. So, and we gave those out. We printed those and gave them out at farmers markets and different events. So that's one way to do it. The other way is the website, and then other advocates, and making sure that the word gets out. And then I guess the last thing would be, it doesn't happen overnight. So this would be a gradual thing. We don't want to just turn the lights on the next day and expect people to behave the right way. It's going to happen gradually, and I think that's the best way to do it, because you educate gradually, and then they get used to it, and more people are behaving and working through it, and then everyone follows, and it's a safe way to do it.
Thank you.
Council Steves.
That actually sparked something else I was thinking about. So do you already have something planned for the process of doing the outreach to get people to see what you're doing and how you're doing it? Because I figure if we're going to be building this project later this year, we probably should be starting the outreach before the groundbreaking, and start getting it out in multiple languages and all that other stuff. And so, do you have a plan for that yet?
No, that isn't anything we've been asked to work on. I don't know if anybody else from the town has other thoughts or information about that, but that's not part of.
That's not part of your.
Yeah,
plan.
we're designing the physical trail. The
Okay.
outreach is, we're happy to help, but
Okay.
I mean, Bill can provide examples of what he did in another community, which would be a starting point.
Okay.
But there may be other things in the works that I'm not aware of.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yeah, so it's one of the things that we typically do when a project gets designed, it goes out to bid, and then you get a contractor on board. When that process starts, the pre-construction meeting, if you will, typically the municipality will update their webpage, so it's a weekly update, and then there are weekly meetings, so it's a constant education or changes to the site. With Southbridge, you're at an advantage because the majority of the trail is off-road.
Right.
It's really going to be the points of intersection at the Golden Greek and where you get crossings through the center of town. And then you got the other construction project, right? There's 2 projects that are going to be happening. So it's really just a lot of coordination, making sure that you get the word out, and working with the businesses as well. And it's not just for the residents, but it's the businesses, and making sure that everyone's kind of working together, because there's going to be issues. It's going to be a nightmare. It's going to be hard. But at the end, if everyone works together, you can work through some of those issues. That's been my experience, is working through that during the construction phase.
Okay.
Anyone else? I'd like to thank the BSC group for being here this evening. And also, I admire your puzzle-making skills. There's a lot of pieces to this puzzle, and it seems like you're able to coordinate everything around, and that's excellent. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
As a representative of the Trail Committee, we're chomping at the bit. We've been chomping at the bit for decades. We're looking forward to continued work with BSC and seeing this project move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, item number 8, Citizens Forum. Are there any citizens that would like to address the council tonight on an item that is not on tonight's agenda?
Hi, Maureen Doyle, 771 Lebanon Hill. Thank you, John, for announcing the forum. I just wanted to share a few more details. I encourage you all to be a knowledgeable voter on Tuesday, June 13th. Attend or watch the Town Council/School Committee Forum at 7 p.m. Thursday, May 11th. It will be here in the McKinnon Council Chambers at 7 p.m. and afterwards on demand on the town website and broadcast occasionally on channel 192. So there are 3 council seats available and 8 people vying for them. Come hear their ideas as they answer a set of questions assembled by the forum committee and presented by the forum moderator, Rich Merrill. In these times of large projects, extended school receivership, needed infrastructure repairs, and day-to-day functioning of Southbridge, come see the town councilors who will help the paid staff to make the decisions about how your local tax dollars are spent. You want to help pick these people out. Thank you.
Very good. Is there anyone else that would like to address the council at this time?
Kevin Buxton, 149 Everett Street, Southbridge, Mass. I wanted to expand a little on Beautify Southbridge Day because it did go off quite well. It seemed like a good turnout. As you can see from outside in front of the building, the amount of trash that was collected, that doesn't include the number of bags that have been left in various areas. In waiting for the rain delay, I happened to start a week early. I have the available time, so I got some bags from the health department and a grabber, and I started picking up. Ironically, it showed me that you can pick up a street one day, wait 2 days, then go back and pick it up again because there'll be 1 or 2 more items. The point I'm trying to make is Beautify Southbridge 1 day a year is great, but we need more community efforts to do it quite more often. In the areas that myself and my partner did, by Crane Street, along River Street, a lot of times you're just picking up miscellaneous litter on the side of the roads, but other times you're seeing areas where there's deliberate dumping of material. The Crane Street area is a good example. We saw some concrete, we saw some various debris. This is just the beginning of the scare we have about illegal dumping going on as we change our curbside program. Those areas, I'll make a note of them. I'll see if we can talk with the health director to see if we can organize some other major cleanup. But like I said, we need to identify these areas, maybe put in some surveillance cameras and try to get these people because, they're pretty noticeable. And as more stuff accumulates, people say, oh, that must be a safe place to dump it. So they dump it. The other point was that now that the trash and the litter have been picked up, Conrad Vandal, this time of year, every year, or maybe even a little sooner, used to always have the same comment. Where's the street sweeper? Where's the street sweeper? We have 2 street sweepers. We've picked up the trash, but there's still leaf litter and other material on our streets. We really need to set a schedule for the street sweeper to get it cleaned up. Because once that material is cleaned up, it's easier to go through and see any other small litter that may be added to it afterwards. It's really important that the street sweeper does the cleanup. And I know when it comes to people paying taxes, everybody wants to pay a lower tax. When it comes to sidewalks, we already know we're responsible for our sidewalks. However, our sidewalks have all started to grow weeds and various other problems. And if it's a situation, what I used to do when I had a private home is on those pickup days where we had leaf and yard waste, I would clean the gutter, the leaf and yard waste out of the gutter, put it in a bag, and it would get picked up by Casella during spring and fall cleanups. If we don't want to have to pay higher taxes, we need to maybe accept the fact that we need to take care of more pride within our frontage. Yes, we have to shovel our sidewalks, but maybe we do have to kind of try to kill off some of the weeds, rip out some of the weeds. Please don't douse the sidewalk with Roundup. Rip them out. They should stay away for at least the rest of the year. But we need to start doing maybe a little more of this on our own because we no longer have the personnel or the equipment, or we no longer want to pay our DPW to try to maintain thousands of miles of sidewalk as well as roads. The other part about the roads is nobody likes a bumpy road. Nobody likes a bad, bumpy road with potholes. Well, guess what? Once you repair your roads, now we have folks driving 90 miles an hour down Everett Street. So be careful what you wish for, because once your roads get smooth and nice and smooth, it results in speeding situations. On streets like Everett Street, Elm Street, where there's large multifamilies with children, it's only a matter of time. We need to come up with some way to crack down, whether it's permanently attached speed traps or whatever, but speeding on our neighborhood streets needs to be addressed. I thank you for your time.
Are there any other citizens that would like to address the council tonight on an issue not on tonight's agenda? Seeing none, let's move on, please, to item number 9. Vote to approve the town manager's appointment of David LaRochelle to the Recreation Committee for a 3-year term effective immediately through June 30, 2026, pending completion of state ethics.
So moved.
Second. Mr. Chair, I believe
Ms. Lapriori was
Ms.
walking to the
Lapriori's-
podium.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank
sorry.
you. Nope, that's quite all right.
I withdraw that motion.
Thank you.
Kathy Lapriori, 51 Mark Avenue. I just wanted to update you on a meeting that I had with the receiver the other day. There was a fellow school committee member who asked me to go with her, and I don't think the meeting went exactly as she thought it would. I had some questions for the receiver and some concerns, and he wasn't really happy about answering the things, but with persistence, I did get some answers. Let's see. After a certain amount of time, he had had enough of me, I guess, and he decided to cut the meeting short. So, I didn't get to ask everything I wanted to, but he also had some comments about the town council, which were upsetting to me. And let's let's see, he said that the town council needs to figure out how to handle a budget because of not being good at it. And he said that the town council's out of control, and it reminds him of Charlie Brown and Lucy. And I just thought that you should know that. You know, I feel badly to bring that forward, but I have more information on the meeting if anyone has any questions. But it really upset me to hear these things because I know how hard you all work. And that's all for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lapriori. Okay, I'll look harder. Is there anyone else that would like to address the council at this time? Okay, let's try again. Item number 9, vote to approve the town manager's appointment of David LaRochelle to the Recreation Committee for a 3-year term effective immediately through June 30, 2026, pending completion of state ethics.
So moved.
Second. Motion by Council Lazo, second by Councilor Dow. Councilman Tigney.
This was voted unanimously at subcommittee.
Thank you very much.
Thank you
Good
so
evening.
much. Yeah, Dave LaRochelle stepped into my office after he played some pickleball that day and asked if he could join the Recreation Committee because he saw the flyer because there was an opening. He stops by regularly because he is a member of the senior rebate program. We give him the keys to the community center. He unlocks it, turns the lights on, and lets me and Pat go home while the kids get to use the facilities. So he's very responsible. He's a retired aviation safety inspector, and he seems completely apt and ready to serve the committee.
Any questions? Council Marquetti.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through you. I was just wondering, what does the Recreation Committee, what do you work on?
What was that?
What do you work on, the Recreation
We
Committee?
do volunteer efforts. We decide on what recreation programs we're going to go forward. They bring ideas to me. For example, Leanne Mayville, one of my great members, she always volunteers. She brought the idea for the egg hunt that I just did. Was pretty successful, had about 40 kids on the Heritage Trail. So.
All right, thank you.
Anyone else? Is Mr. LaRochelle here?
No, I don't believe he is.
Okay. Well, then he can't speak. Okay. Very good. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Unanimous of all present. Item number 10, vote to approve the town manager's appointment of Andrew St. George to the Recreation Committee for a 3-year term effective immediately through June 30, 2026, pending completion of state ethics.
So moved.
Second. Motion by Councilor Ryan, second by Councilor Dow. Councilman Tigney.
This was also recommended unanimously.
Very good.
Thank you. Andrew, I don't believe, could make it here tonight as well, but he did speak at the committee. He is a somewhat recent member of Southbridge. He moved here about 2 or 3 years ago. He's raising his family here. He had a past job as Upton's Recreation Director, and now he's currently serving as Palmer's Recreation Director. Also, his degree is in Recreation and Leisure, and he also ran the Center of Hope summer camp for some time. So I think he would be a great person to have on the committee and, consult with.
Very good. Council Steves.
Yeah, just a quick question. So, assuming we vote him in, how many members, do you need any more members?
This would be full.
This would be full, good.
Yep.
Councilor Rivas.
Thank you. That was my first question. Have there been students that have reached out to be part of the committee or thought about
No,
having
not
students?
that I've had. I would have to look, but is 18 a requirement to serve on a committee?
Yeah, I mean, there are seniors in high school who are 18, so.
I could definitely reach out, but I am in good contact with the National Honor Society, the teacher that works with them.
Yeah, just a thought for the future if there are any openings.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Very good. Anyone else? Very good. All those in favor? Opposed? Unanimous of all present.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 11, vote to approve the town manager's appointment of Janet Jenkins to the Board of Library Trustees for the remainder of a vacated term effective immediately through June 30, 2024, pending completion of state ethics.
So moved.
Second. Motion by Councilor Lazo, second by Councilor Steves. Councilman Tigney.
This was also recommended unanimously at subcommittee.
Very good. Margaret.
I'd just like to make a brief comment and to mention, which I also mentioned at the EHS, I have known Janet Jenkins since I came to Southbridge, and she has been really an important person in my life, because when I started my job at the Jacob Edwards Library in 1995, it was Janet Jenkins was the person who trained me in my job, that I now have been fortunate enough to rise to the august position of being the director. So I think that is a pretty good trajectory to mention. So I would hope that you would vote in favor of this position appointment. Thank you.
Council. Is Ms. Jenkins here?
No, she was at subcommittee.
Very good. Okay. All those in favor? Opposed? Unanimous of all present. Item number 12, vote to approve the town manager's appointment of Tamaz Ofka to the Economic Development Commission for a 3-year term effective immediately through June 30, 2026, pending completion of state ethics.
So moved.
Second. Motion by Councilor Lazo, second by Councilor Ryan? Sure. Yeah. Okay. Very good. Councilor Adams is not here. This went to P&D. I was told that this was a unanimous recommendation. Ms. Dean.
This would fill the 7th seat for the Economic Development Commission. We haven't been able to pull a quorum together since Rosemary Scrivens left the director's position, and so this is a welcome opportunity to fill the seat. Tomas is here tonight. I'd love for him to come up and speak if given the opportunity. Maybe he could speak to why he came forward and considered the position. I can't speak highly enough about his resume. If you got the supporting materials, he is currently an analyst at IBM. He's worked as a business analyst in another company. He has a degree from Southern Methodist University, 4 years on the Dean's List, worked for PepsiCo before that, so I think he'll be a real asset to the Economic Development Commission. So would you like to give him the opportunity to speak?
Sure.
Great, thank you.
Good evening, Council.
Good evening.
Thank you. My name is Tomasz Owca, as Peg introduced me. A little bit more about myself. Currently, I'm working actually as a chief of operations for a tech startup at a global scale. So we're a SaaS platform, but I do work with a lot of various venture partners, which I'd love to introduce to Southbridge. Like I said, I've been a part of the Southbridge community for more than 20 years, and I'd love to be a part of the development part of it and, have a community that we're all proud of and can, introduce more people here too. So thank you.
Very good. Councilors. Councilor Lazo.
I think you'll do a fine job, because I know your mom and dad did a fine job in raising you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Anyone else? Very good. All those in favor? Opposed? Unanimous of all present. Congratulations.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Item number 13. Vote to approve the town manager's appointment of Jacob Webb of Stafford Springs as a full-time firefighter for the town of Southbridge, effective immediately upon completion of all medical and physical testing, including passing the state physical assessment test, the PAT, background checks, and state ethics training.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Councilor Ryan, second by Councilor Dow. Chief.
Good evening, everybody. Council members, thank you for taking this item out of turn. Obviously, Councilor Lazo, Chair of PPP, we generally do go that route first. And Council Chairman Daniel, thank you again for pushing this forward tonight. Although, because we do know our next couple of months, a month or so meeting is going to be pretty jam-packed, so it's good to get Jake here approved and appointed and get his feet on the ground. I'm going to use Councilor Lazo's term. But thank you anyways. Just a little refresher from last fall, we had a hiring of 5 employees. At that time, we created a list of employees to use at a further date, future date. We had a recent resignation of a member, a full-time member that left for personal reasons to go to another industry. This opens up the door for Jake to slide into this position and get him to become full-time on the fire department. Jake currently resides in Stafford Springs, Connecticut, which is within the 15-mile radius for the collective bargaining agreement. He had previously lived in Southbridge, where he had many ties to the area, businesses and citizens alike. So this is where he excelled within our hiring process. Jake's been around for a while. He works at the hospital, so he sees people from that aspect in moving forward. Jake has been an active member of the call department since September of 2021, and he recently completed and obtained his Firefighter 1-2 certification at the Mass Call Volunteer Fire Academy. During our hiring process last fall, Jake displayed a high degree of integrity, responsibility, and ambition towards being a firefighter. He went to the call vol training last fall and into this spring, all in his own time, on his own dime. We did give him the appropriate NFPA-approved firefighter gear, supported him through the process. So obviously, he wants to be here as a full-time firefighter. I'd like to recommend Jake to be appointed to the position of full-time firefighter. He still has to complete medical and physical testing, including passing the PAT, background checks, and et cetera. Thank you. Any questions?
Council Steves.
Yeah, just a quick clarification. So going through call vol training, will he need to do any additional training to become a full-time firefighter?
So the way the collective bargaining agreement reads for the full-time department, he would still have to go back to the full-time fire academy for a 10-week period. Yes.
Okay. Council Laszlo.
Just more of a comment than a question. I think you're going to be a fine firefighter. But the thing is, I think, Chief, and I thank you for this, to see somebody come from the call department into the fire department, and I know that it started when Jack Jovan became chairman. We tried to work to rebuild the call department, and the first thing I thought was the minute you see a callman go to a full-time firefighter, it gives other younger people a more belief that, geez, I can be a callman, I can be a fireman. So I think this one here is a win-win. Mm-hmm. I support it 100%. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Very good. Anyone else? Mm-hmm. Mr. Webb, would you like to speak?
You don't have to. No. Thank you for the opportunity. I'm excited to work in the town of Southbridge. Thanks again. That's all I got.
Very good. All those in favor? Opposed? Unanimous of all present. Congratulations, firefighter Webb. Item number 14, vote to accept the warrant for the town election on Tuesday, June 13, 2023.
So moved.
Second. Motion by Councilor Ryan, second by Councilor Steves. Any questions, councilors? All those in favor? Opposed? Unanimous of all present.
We have a short break.
5-minute recess now.
Okay. 5-minute recess. Okay, I call this meeting back to order. We're up to agenda item number 15. Vote to accept donations made to the town of Southbridge for the new fire station project. Such funds to be deposited into the project account and may be spent for the purposes of the project as determined by the Fire Station Building Committee.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Councilor Ryan, second by Councilor Steves. Councilor Steves.
We recommended that unanimously, and just to clarify that this is specifically for funds. Any other items that get donated to the project will come before the council.
Very good. Questions? Councilor Marchetti.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So what's the total amount of the funds that are being collected here?
It's not. I think Jack said the aim was for about 500 grand, but nothing's been collected yet. This creates the fund to
So this is just for
collect
future?
it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
All set. Council Lazo.
If Mr. Jovan could get to come to the podium, I'm totally in favor of this. My question is if you could elaborate, are there going to be any dedications to any particular high donator? I know that when Mary Wells donated $50,000 to Wells, they named a building after him. Sometimes projects do rooms, amphitheaters, various other things. Are we going to be doing anything like this?
Yeah, so this was the first step in that process. We're modeling this after the town of Charlton. Town of Charlton had done a similar capital campaign where they set out and they had a flyer where it would say, if you want this room named after you, they had like suggested donation types. We haven't gotten to that point. This was really the first step to at least get the account established. We've had multiple different foundations state that they have considered this project. The banks had, I think the initial wave on the Charlton Public Safety Building was $450,000 that they had raised very quickly. So a lot of that funding had been pulled back because obviously that project has not gone forward. So we're hoping to capitalize on some of those local benefactors that want to bring to us. And also, you know, yes, so yeah, like for instance, we have the Emergency Operations Center meeting room. So if somebody wanted to donate a certain amount of money, we'll take a look at that. Of course, follow whatever town procedure there is to name rooms, but yes.
Nice. Thank you very much. Keep up the good work.
Councilor Rivas.
I'm also in favor of this, but I just wanted to clarify. So we established the account. Who would manage the account? Would it go through?
Everything goes through the town treasurer.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's all town funds, so it's just the ability to take it and dedicate it right to that thing.
Perfect. Thanks.
Council Lazo.
But they would be earmarked fire department.
Correct. So
The
so
fire
it would come
department
in.
building.
So say the Hyde Dexter Foundation decided to give us $200,000 over a number of years. That would all go to the treasurer's office.
Nice.
For this project.
Thank you.
Okay. All those in favor? Opposed? Unanimous of all present.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 16, vote to accept the revised job description for the DPW Deputy Director and entertain a motion to recommend to,
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Councilor Dow, second by Councilor Steves. Councilor Marquetti.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This was unanimous at the subcommittee, sent it up to town council. There was some discussion about what the deputy director, what his role would be. Would they have it be an engineer? Would they just be a deputy director? My own opinion, I'm not sure we need a deputy director. We may need somebody who's an assistant, but we did vote to send it up to council for discussion and approval tonight. Thank you.
Very good. Councilors? Councilor Steves.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out that Mr. Benoit was there, and he talked about it extensively, and he's definitely in favor, at least in the long term, of getting another engineer back there in what used to be Matt's position. The current job description, the way it's phrased, is civil engineering and project management background preferred, but not technically required.
Councilor Lazo.
I too, I thank Councilor Marquetti for some clarification. I am in favor of the second in command with Deputy Director. And I also was at a lot of DPW meetings where we would like to have a civil engineer preferred. But if the civil, what was discussed was it'll be like searching for a needle in a haystack. So I think that the powers to be, I hope you keep it in the forefront, that the civil engineer would be nice to have, but not a have to have. We do need a second in command. I know there's a differential in the salary lines, but it gives the ability for the town manager and the council to work within the bounds of, if somebody came in with an engineering license, the value of that person would be more than a person that came in that was not a civil engineer. So I think moving forward, I think everybody understands what the intent is to try and get an engineer, but if nobody applies with it, you don't have to have it. We can move forward with a second in command, and the salary should reflect that. Thank you.
Very good. Anyone else? Councilor Rivas.
I guess maybe to the town manager or acting town manager, since we'd like to have someone with a civil engineering background, are there, what are the mechanisms or sort of networking or places that we might look to recruit? Do we have or maybe the assistant town manager?
Through the chair. Yes, there are. I mean, we can certainly make that clear, whether we advertise in the MMA newsletter or in any of the Bay State roads. There are associations that certainly we can reach out there. And I think it's a good idea to do it this way. I certainly support the recommendation to go forward with this.
Very good.
Thank you.
Council Marquetti.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. But some of the discussion that we had is, if you look around the neighboring towns, not all of them have a deputy director. They'll have an assistant to work with the highway supervisor. Now, I know that the director would like someone to take over so he can spend more time working on the roads, more time at the water and sewer department. And I feel that right now we need somebody to oversee the water and sewer department. We do have management companies running those departments, but I think if you look back, it was the prior DPW director who was putting together their budgets, because we have been having a hard time getting a final vote on the budget. We don't have all the information. So my only opinion, somebody should be in charge of water and sewer, someone in charge of highway. Whether we need a deputy director or not, I'm not sure, but he would like to have an engineer. If you look at the budget that he's put together, an engineer would be making more money than our director would even be making. So that doesn't make sense to me at this time, but we did approve the deputy director. I guess it's just all in a name, what you want to call them. But that's my only interest at this point, is trying to keep the budget as tight as we can. So thank you.
Very good. Council Lazo.
I too don't care what the name of it is. It's a second in command. A deputy director is the guy that would step in when the director's gone. It would exemplify if the director went and got a job somewhere else. The deputy, you could train him to be the next up, so we don't have these problems that we've been going through for the last year. As far as the pay scale, if you want to pay an engineer, and if we get a civil engineer, that is going to be worth more than your director. The director is a manager. This person would also have the engineering degree, which would catapult him over the director. So for myself, I think let's go with the model and see what it produces in the interviews and the application. And then we can maybe cross the bridge at that point about what we really want when the time comes, and what we have to pick from is going to be the determining factor. Thank you.
Anyone else? Very good. All those in favor? Opposed? Unanimous of all present. Item number 17, vote to approve classifying the revised position to grade A-7 on Schedule 1 administrative salary schedule for positions not covered by collective bargaining agreements.
So moved.
Second. Motion by Councilor Ryan, second by Councilor Dow. Councilor Marquetti.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This was also approved unanimous at the subcommittee. The issue that we were looking at on this schedule is the pay scale, and whether or not we wanted, in the budget, it's going up as high as $110,000 a year, and I thought that was a little too high for this position. The rescheduling here of this position drops it down. I believe I'm saying that correct. It's dropping it down a level. So the starting salary is around $90,000 to $101,000. I still think it's a little too high, but that's what we approved at the subcommittee to send it up here for the council for approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Ryan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you to actually I think maybe the assistant might be able to help in this regard, the assistant town manager. I was wondering if this rate for this position was comparable to other communities like ours and the communities around us. For civil engineering, if their person was selected.
Through you,
Mr. Chair, so the rationale behind the current salary range that we're proposing for this reclassification is because the operations manager makes $85,000 through $95,000 a year. So if we would classify this position any lower, it would cause wage compression. And the assistant deputy director has a higher rank than the operations manager. He falls third in the, in the hierarchy. Therefore, that is mid-range between the director and the operations manager. Thank you.
Anyone else? Very good. All those in favor? Opposed? Unanimous of all present. Item number 18, vote to approve change order number 6 with JAM for $8,754.67 for handball court surfacing, and authorize the town manager to sign any related paperwork.
So moved.
Motion by Councilor Ryan, second by Councilor Lazo. Councilor Adams told me that this was approved unanimously. Yep.
Yes.
Thank you. I'll check with you on the others. Okay. Any discussion? Councilor Marquetti.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through you. You know, I did take a look at the project that is on the town's website, and it, just going through it page by page, it sure looked to me, in some of the schematics, it looked to me that it all included asphalt, concrete, and base material for all of these things that are on here tonight. So I'm just wondering, is this something in addition to what was already on that project? It was a project guide by BSC Group. It's on here on the website. So is this something that was not covered? It is covered, but in addition to what was on the original proposal?
If I may, through you, Chair, this was not included in the original bid packet. They tried to keep the bid as affordable as low as possible. This was one of those nice to-haves. It was going to be a finished asphalt with the striping, so it would look finished, and the New England Handball Association has said that they can use that surface, but that the best surface to be able to attract tournaments and to be able to really promote the surface is to have it painted. They would paint it themselves. The following year, we looked at potentially just buying them supplies and then them doing the painting. However, then they would need to stripe. Should they have errors, we would need to mill it again. And then, so it's probably worth everyone's time to just pay the incremental increase from supply to actually supply and install for us to just get a professional to do it. And then the next agenda item is to then extend the contract so that the asphalt has time to cure for 4 to 6 weeks. Once the asphalt's cured, they go in, they paint, they shut the handball court down for 4 days, and then you have a finished product by mid-June.
All right, thank you.
Very good. Anyone else? All those in favor? Opposed? Unanimous of all present. Item number 19, vote to approve extending JAM's contract to June 16, 2023 to allow for asphalt to cure prior to surfacing handball court, and authorize the town manager to sign any related paperwork.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Councilor Ryan, second by Councilor Rivas. Councilor Dow, this was unanimous? Thank you. Any questions, Council? All those in favor? Opposed? Unanimous of all present. Item number 20, vote to approve the use of remaining grant funds for change order number 7 for up to $9,000 to pour concrete for surface-mounted site furnishings, and authorize the town manager to sign any related paperwork.
So moved.
Motion by Councilor Ryan, second by Councilor Lazo. Councilor Dow, this was unanimous as well?
Can you ask for a friendly amendment? Can I request that the council make a friendly amendment or someone recommend it? We discussed at the P&D subcommittee meeting changing this motion to just read, approve the use of the remaining funds and allow the town manager to sign any related paperwork. Because JAM, I couldn't fit concrete into their schedule. They're already on to asphalt. They would have done concrete before it. And so that's out. I can't do a change order with them. We can potentially hire Benoit, Fontaine, or someone to do some of the concrete pads. But in order for me to fit these last pieces together, if I could just have the authorization to spend the last of the funds, then I can make it work by June 1, ideally, mid-June for the final. And so what we're doing is we're figuring out how many site furnishings we can buy, whether that's a bench or a receptacle, a garbage, trash receptacle. And then if you're going to have it, you have to lay the concrete for it. For our ADA swing, I have to get a little ADA ramp that goes onto over to the swing set. That was sort of a change because if you'll recall, we were going to get the big oodle swing, but now that's happening later. In order to be compliant with the park grant, we have to make sure we can access the little ADA swing, et cetera, et cetera.
I'll move to make that amendment.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilor Ryan, a second by Councilor Lazo to amend the motion to read as follows. Please correct me. Vote to approve the use of remaining grant funds and authorize the town manager to sign any related paperwork. Is that where we're going? Okay. Very good.
Just a question, Mr. Chair. How much is left in the account over the 9,000?
There'll be somewhere between, it's less than 10,000, give or take. Yeah. Okay. We were just given a quote for the shade structures from Economy Canvas. We've come up with a great solution to put just freestanding canopies or awnings over the dugouts. And so that money is now being committed for that. The last remaining is less than 10,000 for the few site furnishings.
Thank you.
Any further discussion on the amendment? Councilor Marquetti.
I think the council is responsible for approving all funding. So, I mean, if we're just going to start giving blank checks, I mean, I realize this is just a grant, but I do think we should be voting on everything that is spent and not just say, okay, you can spend whatever you got. That's my only thing on that. And then I have something on the emotion, but I'll wait for that.
Very good. Councilor Lazo first, and then we'll work our way around.
I do agree with what Councilor Marquetti is saying, and I think by the council voting the balance of under $10,000, we basically approved it for the manager to deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we did do it.
Yeah.
And that's why I feel comfortable with it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I agree.
Thank you.
Very good. Councilor Steves, then Councilor Dow.
Okay, I just want to clarify. With this amendment, so are you actually looking at not doing concrete? Because you were talking a few minutes ago about having a different contractor do the concrete.
If I may through you, so for every piece of site furnishing, I need a concrete pad.
Okay.
And so it will be whichever site furnishing and the concrete. In order to find out how much, right, you have to go out for the concrete quotes, and then you have to figure out the site furnishings, and you have to juggle the two. You have a budget meeting on May 22nd. You have asked that we not bring agenda items forward. I already am asking for exceptions to that. So I'm not going to be able to come to you on May 22nd, which would be my last opportunity to ask for funding. I appreciate the town council's trust in me to try to get this project done, right? So there's a certain level of, have I earned the ability to be able to just finish the project out and ensure we're doing what we're supposed to for the grant, for the park grant.
Okay, so to clarify then, I don't have a problem with that because I know you do a good job, and I have no problem with Charlie being able to monitor that. But I just want to clarify so are we going to actually see the contract with any contractor you get at least after the fact, so that we know? Because you were talking about a couple of possible contractors to do this work, and under the charter we do have to approve contracts for services.
If I may, through you, Chair, this is giving the authorization for me to go ahead with those contracts so I can get this stuff done. And then, of course, I'm happy to share whatever information I can after the fact. I don't by any means want to take away the town council's ability to say yes or no to these things. I'm just trying to make sure we can get these projects done and spend down the funds we have available to us. I want to remind everybody for a 10th time, this park grant, we had an amazing experience by getting a low bid. We had an extra $100,000 we were able to spend, and we've been working hard to try to do that. So we're in a great position.
Which is great.
Councilor Dow.
Thank you, Chair, through you. I think the whole idea she's trying, because it's a different contractor. She doesn't have to come every minute to here and ask for the remaining $9,000 to be released. And I think under 10,000, she will provide an invoice after the job is done with the town manager approval. So it is somebody's actually looking over the money where it's going. It's the town manager, the one we trust too, and she's going to come back after the work is done with the rest of the paperwork. The whole idea is if she found a contract for 4,000 and another one for 5,000 for a different thing, she doesn't have to come 3-4 months for 9,000 approval. Thank you.
Very good. Council Marquetti.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. She doesn't have to, but according to the charter, she does have to. So you can't just say, well, she doesn't have to do that. She does have to do that. So I don't have a problem with her coming forward and saying, I found this contract for this amount. I think that could be wrapped up very easily. Don't think we have to give somebody just carte blanche to do what they want.
Sure.
So are we still talking about the amendment or the full?
The amendment.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Can I respond back, please? Through you,
Councilor
Chair. By I mean she don't have to. I don't mean to offend you, Councilor Marquetti. I mean she doesn't. She have to come back. Actually, she's here now. She's asking for the 9,000 to get approved. With the town manager sign all the paperwork. We're not breaking no charter here, but it's a couple of contractors, and if she have to come in every small contractor here with the remaining balance in the same project we'll be working on, it's just the matter of the time she's going to come here and she have to wait. We might have not get the same price or the same job to be done on time. That's what I mean by she doesn't have to. She's here already. She's asking where she have to spend the money with the town manager approval. Thank you.
Ms. Dean.
Yes, if I may, through you, Chair, just to also maybe give a little context. So when we enter into a bid, there's a chance for change orders. I have to wait until we're so far into that contract to make sure I know sort of exactly how much we have remaining, and then I have to follow all the procurement for those additional items. Then with the procurement, it takes me at least a 3-week lead time to bring everything to the town council, and this project is supposed to be done by June 1. We're now moving it to June 16. I have to have all things paid and reimbursed by June 30, putting pressure on the accountant's office, right? So I'm moving very quickly, and so this is just helping to ensure we get it done. And I appreciate any consideration towards it.
Councilor Ryan.
Thank you. I trust, I was going to vote in favor of 9,000. If we're going to give her carte blanche just for an extra under $1,000, it just seems a little ridiculous to me, but I get it. But I support this. I trust Ms. Dean to do the work and to do it efficiently. She's continued to prove herself and her worth here, so I think it's a little insane to be talking about less than $1,000 difference. So I'll support it.
Councilman Tigney.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, thank you, Ms. Dean, for all your hard work in trying to be proactive and trying to tackle this. But you said ridiculous a little bit to put you through all this 7 times. Who are we to blame more for this? JAM's bid that was obviously way too low, or BSC's design being wrong? I mean, because we've had to put you through the ringer 1,000 times now for this, and you've done great work getting us to the finish line. So I was like, where was this disconnect to make it so jumbled?
If I may, through you, Chair, I would say that far from a failure, this was an opportunity, and this is project management. We were in a rare situation where we had a low bid. This should not have come in as low. So it was JAM's, it was JAM who I will not say made the mistake of, because I don't want to consider it a mistake. I want to consider it a privilege for the town. So BSC Group, I think they nailed the design, and JAM came in right at what their cost estimate was, not over, and we've done a good job of then taking advantage of the extra funds. Ideally, everything would have been in the bid package. It would have been contracted that all of X work was done by X date, and we wouldn't be in this again, opportunity to be able to spend down the additional funds.
Well, thank you for the explanation and for all your hard work. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Council Oslo.
That's all I'm going to say. Welcome to the construction world. I know when we built the high school, Jack Jovan's going through it with the fire department. It's bidding, it's projecting, it's guessing. And then when the bid comes in, and you look at it, depending on the economics, how busy is the company? Maybe they weren't busy, they were hungry. This has a lot to do with the swing and the pricing. So what ends up happening is, in this deal, it ends up working for us. Just like in the bad economic times we built the high school, it worked for us on time and under budget. But where the tire hits the road is all the procurement laws we have to cover by hitting the right, get it in at the right time, to pay at the right time. It's quite a balancing act, and I think you're one of the better people I've seen in my time in government that can do that balancing act, still come forward. That's why I agree with Councilor Marchetti. Yes, the charter is explicit, but to me, to cover the charter, I'm voting to take that $9,000 and give it to you to finish that project, and I want the town manager to oversee it. Right. So as a councilor, I've done my job, and to abide by the charter, and now I am going to entrust the town manager, who we are advising to overlook this small $9,000. Right. It'll work, but we need to kind of work through this because that's the way the construction field is. Thank you.
Very good. Okay, we have an amendment on the floor. Any further discussion on the amendment?
Could you just read the amendment, please?
Certainly. The amended agenda item would read as follows. Vote to approve the use of remaining grant funds and authorize the town manager to sign any related paperwork.
So it's not $9,000.
That's been deleted from the amendment.
Thank you.
Okay. Any further discussion? Okay, on the amendment, all those in favor? Opposed? The vote is 7-1. Councilor Marchetti against. The amendment passes. We now have an amended motion on the floor. Any further discussion on the amended motion? Councilor Marchetti.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through you. So again, I did look at the proposal that's on the website, and I saw some of the blueprints, some of the schematics, and all of the furnishings had concrete bases. So why is there a need to add concrete if there was already in the proposal?
If I may, through you, Chair, the site furnishings ended up not being in the base bid. We're buying those independently, and we're laying down the concrete for whichever ones we choose to go with. And I guess maybe I didn't clarify also, to complicate the reason I can't come to you with an exact tonight is I am in the midst of out for quotes for the shade structures. So until I know what the exact amount is for the shade structures, will I know how much I have to spend on the site furnishings and the concrete?
Well, as I said, I did see the blueprint that is on your website. It does show the furnishings. It does show concrete base. So maybe that was a mistake. I'm not sure, but that is on there. And I was just curious as to why now, for some reason, concrete wasn't included. It was included. It just doesn't make sense to me, but thank you. Appreciate it.
Councilor Dow.
Thank you, Chair, through you. I mean, with respect to everyone, I don't know why we're giving her a hard time. She's working so hard to improve the town, the park for the kid and all these stuff, and we keep giving her a hard time for what? We understand where the money going. We need to stop playing political sometime too much in here and keep things rolling. Enough is enough. She's not taking the $9,000 out. Come on now. Thank you.
Councilor Lazo.
Just one further question. If the contract had the concrete in it, and the bids came in and it was low, did we buy extra furniture or extra things that needed the concrete that were not in the contract? Yeah. Or was the concrete not in the contract? He brings up a valid point.
There is concrete in, if I may through you, Chair, forgive me. There is concrete in the design. There is not concrete for these extra site furnishings and concrete. And we don't really have site furnishings, but we have concrete.
Thank you.
Thank you. But first of all, I'm not giving anybody a hard time. I'm just asking questions here. Yeah. Second of all, I saw pictures of the benches with a concrete base, and I saw pictures of fencing and all kinds of things on that proposal by BSC. It could be just that maybe you did add more furniture, I don't know, but these are just the questions that I'm asking, why we need to spend an additional 9,000+ for concrete if it was already in the proposal?
Okay. Forgive me for maybe not being as rapid fire as I normally am. Yes, the alternate definitely had lots of other features, but we only accepted the base bid, so forgive me.
Okay. Thank you.
Very good. Anyone else? All those in favor? Opposed? The vote is 7-1. Councilor Marquetti against. The motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wish me luck.
Thank you. Item number 21, vote to approve applying for the Massachusetts Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs, EEA, Planning Assistance Grant to support the creation of a Southbridge housing production plan for up to $20,000 and transfer 25% of the grant funding from town council reserves.
So moved.
Second. Motion by Councilor Ryan, motion by Councilor Ryan, second by Councilor Dow. Councilor Dow, this was unanimous?
It was a vote at a normal.
Okay. Any discussion? Councilor Marquetti.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do have a few questions about this one. So this is just another plan for it's an assistant grant to plan for affordable housing in town, and is that what this is for? It's not actually to provide affordable housing. It's another plan for affordable housing to take a look at the town. That's one of my questions. Thank you.
That's correct. And I'll take this moment to formally introduce myself before Town Council. I'm Katie Yoder. I'm the new CDBG coordinator in the Economic Development and Planning Office. And I've been in this role since the end of January. Yes, this is a housing plan, a housing production plan. And so it would not create any new affordable housing in itself, but it would highlight any of the needs and resources existing for housing in Southbridge and look at some of the goals for what could be produced in the future.
Thank you. And so then I'm also just reading through the document and looking at Appendix B, zoning practices eligible for simple majority vote, allows for multifamily housing or mixed-use development as of right. As of right, what exactly does that mean? Is that, if you could tell me, explain as of right, what does that mean?
You're referring to the 40B?
Right.
Yes, so...
40A, Section 5. It's in the appendix. I was just curious as to what as of right means. They have a right to put a multi-family dwelling anywhere they want, or?
Well, yes. So under 40B in the state of Massachusetts, if a new housing development includes a certain percentage of affordable units within their development, they are allowed a comprehensive permit that allows them to override the town's permitting process. And I believe there have been some existing cases of this in Southbridge. Having a housing production plan and then being certified in the future would allow the town to be able to prevent and monitor any kinds of projects that go in and have a say in whether or not they come.
All right. I mean, thank you. I'm not against this. I do think we need to take a look at affordable housing. Really is people have a hard time finding affordable housing in this town. I'm just curious as to why some of this language here just seems contradictory to me. I mean, allows accessory dwelling units either within the principal dwelling or within a detached structure on the same lot as of right. And that seems to me that's contradicting a bylaw, which we are voting on tonight, which does not allow multiple dwellings on one lot. And so this is why I'm asking these questions now. Is that going to override a bylaw that we're voting on tonight? Allows by special permit accessory dwelling units in a detached structure on the same lot. Again, we are reading a bylaw tonight that does not allow any of that. So I'm just curious as to why, not why, but if it's in your opinion, does that contradict any of our own zoning bylaws?
I would
Without
say
seeing
that
the
I
bylaws,
am
right.
not versed enough in the town of Southbridge's bylaws to answer
Right.
that.
Okay. And then finally, adopts a smart growth or starter home district. Could you explain that?
A smart home,
A smart growth or starter home district.
this is language directly from the state of Massachusetts?
Well, it's on the Appendix B of this document that we have tonight.
Yes, I believe that is language provided by the state. I can't speak exactly on their definitions of those types of districts.
Okay.
If you'd like future information, I can look into that further.
All right. Well, I was reading into it, and a city or town may adopt smart growth zoning districts in eligible locations and may include adjacent areas that are served by existing infrastructure and utilities and have a safe pedestrian access to schools, civic facilities, places of commerce, commercial or business employment, recreation, or transit. And as we all know, we have a problem with a lot of our sidewalks in town. I know that I've been trying to get some sidewalks on Morris Street for quite a while, so hopefully that we will adopt this smart growth, our starter home district, so that we can get some sidewalks installed throughout Southbridge. That's all I have. Thank you.
May I chime in? So if I may, through you, Chair, just to be clear, so this is a local assessment that's supposed to help look at what's the state's housing, right? Everyone knows that the state's one of their biggest agendas is affordable housing right now, and they have a lot of their agendas spelled out at the state level. We look at them from the local level, and then based on our assessment, we will also have the opportunity to look at whether we want to adopt certain zoning, whether we want to. But again, this is a public process, like much of the planning processes we have. And so CMRPC would potentially work with the town, and they would look at these things, maybe suggest some strategies going forward, if that would line up towards the town's goals for affordable housing.
Thank you.
Council Laszlo, then Council
So Peg, well, if I could, this is basically a study to find out the needs of what the community needs.
That's one part of it. The initial phase would be of a study. There would also be community input sessions where community members would come in and share what they would see as most beneficial to housing in the town. And then there would be outcomes and proposed solutions.
Okay, now, once we locate what our needs are, part of this says that we can override. Now, we have a building project up on Gulfwood that was supposed to be over 55 housing. They had some problems with the fire inspector on duplexes in that area or a zoning issue. And they ended up telling him, you can't build it, it's got to be a single-family home. They went to Boston and they overrode it, and they're putting low income on the Southbridge side of the border, but they're putting regular housing in Charlton. My question is this part of the overriding of local ordinances to allow housing to be put in areas that maybe the community doesn't want them in?
This would actually be helping to give the community more say in instances like that. Once you have a housing production plan in place, you can get a certification from the state that allows you to prevent certain developments like that.
Which would override the local ordinance.
Right, you would have the ability to prevent those instances in which they can override it by having a say in keeping your ordinances in place. So if you have a plan and you are certified by the state by having this plan, you then have the option, if a developer such as the one you described comes forward, you can say, no, we are certified, we can have a say in what you do.
Thank you.
Council Steves.
As I understand it, when it comes to 40B, the number that I recall is a 10% requirement, isn't there? That if we have 10% that's qualified as affordable, then therefore we could, at that point we can reject 40B.
That is one level. So if you achieve 10%, you're considered safe harbor.
Okay.
If you are not yet achieving 10%, but you have a plan and you make a stride towards 0.5% a year or 1% over 2 years, then you can be certified even if you haven't reached the 10% yet.
Okay. Because the one question I've always had a concern about as far as the way they define affordable housing in state guidelines is that here the median income is like 44 grand, but the state guidelines say that the number is like 70 grand because it's based on the county, which means that our average housing, like if you exclude the ones that are supposedly labeled affordable, the average housing in our community is actually lower than the supposed affordable level.
It is. It's true.
We are, in fact, an affordable community. But the problem is the way the state guidelines treat it, all of that stuff just doesn't get seen. So that these developers can get quote unquote affordable housing grants and put up basically whatever they want at rates that are significantly higher than the average rent in this community right now. That's one of the problems I have. So will this study help to actually determine what the actual rental rates are in our community versus what the state is claiming they are?
I believe that could be one of the outcomes, yeah.
Because I think we need to be able to prove that I think that our community actually is already affordable. Because what we're doing now is basically gentrifying our own people out of our community, which is not a good thing. The other thing I wanted to point out is to go back to something that Councilor McKetty brought up is accessory units and this listing of stuff in Appendix B. I just want to point out that if I'm reading this properly, these are just simply saying that they are eligible for special treatment under the state law, but they're not necessarily, they won't, by doing this study, will not impose them on our law. And they're not saying that we have all of these things now. So we may have some of them. And that's why I was thinking about accessory units, because I think somewhere in our text, in our zoning bylaws, we do allow accessory units. But that doesn't mean that they're considered accessory because they are not legally separate units. They're basically grandfather units. Your grandparents live downstairs and they have a bathroom and a bedroom and maybe a kitchen, but they're not legally separate. They're not getting separate utilities and stuff like that. And they don't have a legally separate address. They're just in your house. Yeah, that's all I have. Thanks.
Very good. Councilor Ryan, then Councilor Rivas.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. Thank you for bringing this forward. Everyone's right. Like, we've been talking about affordable housing. It's been one of the making sure we have true affordable housing. And there's been a lot of talk at the state level and from the governor's office about reforming a lot of that. So I'm eager to see what this study shows, and I'm also happy with the fact that it provides us, if we do it and get certified, a level of protection. That's really important because then that way we still have a say in how affordable housing goes forward and where it goes forward. But at the same time, it makes sure that people who need affordable units can get them. So I'm eager to see what this study shows. So thank you for bringing this forward, and I intend to fully support it tonight.
All right. Councilor Rivas, then Councilor Dow.
Yes, I also echo that. Thank you. This is a big issue statewide and across the country. I do appreciate that it gives us an opportunity to hear from stakeholders and residents across our community. I think that is really important, but that it also provides protection for our community. I think my question is, if we don't participate in this, are we left vulnerable to what Councilor Marchetti and Councilor Lazo are talking about, the state overriding our local ordinances?
Yes.
And that's what I'm hearing.
That's what 40B does.
Yes, that's correct. So long as the municipality isn't certified, any developer that meets the affordable housing requirements as defined by the state can go forward with this kind of development.
Thank you.
Councilor Dow.
Thank you, Chair. Through you, I think same question Councilor Riva asked will override our by law.
So
They can, yes. That's what 40B does.
that's the same question. Thank you.
Very good. Council Lazo.
When we do an overview of Southbridge, and when there is an imbalance of a socially economic imbalance of income, single-family homeowners to three-deckers or low-income areas, I think we have our fair share of low income in Southbridge. Nobody grows up and says, I want to be all low income. That's why when people apply for grants or different building projects and they say they're going to take state and federal money, you have to label your breakout on your moderate, low income percentages on your subdivision or on your building project. So the state really hasn't changed a lot. I'm going to be voting no tonight because I think when I look at my town, I think we have plenty of low income already. I think we need to get a balance more of the opposition of low income. So unless we want to continue to just be 100% to one side of the socioeconomics, which I think it leans that way, I think we need to look at it from a balance point as elected officials. And moving forward, if anybody wants to do federal housing as the AO did, they go in, they get the federal money, but along with that goes all the regulations. Anybody can override us and go to Boston and get a comprehensive permit and not have to deal with our building department. You can talk to our building inspector, he's well experienced in it. So moving forward, I don't even want to embark on this discussion with all the great things that are going on in Southbridge. We don't need to go backwards. Thank you.
May I?
Ms. Dean.
Yeah, so one of the things I remember Melissa Zawadski asking was, do you know your percentage of low moderate income? Does our department have a grasp on housing? And so I felt like with the accent of Katie's hire, she's going to be taking over the housing rehab for the next block grant, assuming we're going to be awarded and we're going to be doing that. Then the next question was, would she be willing to do this study, because we need to get a handle on where we are with housing, not just for low moderate income and all of the benefits of looking at how we can hedge off 40Bs, but also to know if we want to be able to turn around some of the housing stock that's either substandard or blighted. How do we do that? What's the best strategy? So what I'm hoping as part of that study is that we are looking at, how do we approach it? Because the urban renewal plan said early in 2011 that we need to get mixed housing, mixed medium and low moderate income. We need to be changing over some of the housing stock in the downtown that's aged out. But we're not really sure, what that strategic approach should be. So I'm really hoping that that's part of this.
If I could just...
Mr. Manager.
Yeah, one thing that I think is very important to consider here, this isn't really just a study. In other words, this is a housing production plan that when it's accepted by the state, then we do get further relief from potential comprehensive permits. We come up with a plan and we say we'll have a certain number of units that are identified that the town really needs, and once that plan is approved, it'll be our goal to try to achieve that. If we don't, there's really no penalty for it, but we still need to work on that. And then we do get relief from comprehensive permits as we would, or similar to what we would have if we were over 10%. The other issue from what, Gus said, and I know what Councilor Lazo said, is, there are a lot of affordable housing units in Southbridge, in most communities. The problem is that they have to have deed restrictions in order to qualify for the state's program, what they count toward that 10%. So we may have housing here that really does meet the needs of affordability. But if it isn't deed restricted and accepted by the state, then it doesn't count for your 10% requirement. So I think those are one of the problems, I think, with 40B.
Councilor Marchetti.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Okay, I accept this as something that maybe we should do. I wasn't sure I wanted to go with it tonight. The only thing I would ask is that this study does not sit on a shelf somewhere like all the other plans and studies we've done, and nothing happens from it. So going forward, I hope that it can be put to good use. Thank you.
Councilor Rivas.
And just to speak to that a little bit through you, Chair, I think that we've seen the work of Ms. Dean and kind of like some of those studies that have been sitting on a shelf for a long time were utilized for many of the new projects that we have going on now. And I do think that if we don't have a plan for what we want our community to look like in balance between what's affordable and all the other uses, then if we don't have a plan, someone else is going to dictate that for us, meaning the state is going to tell us what we're going to have. So I think it is important for us to have a say as a community in how we want our future of what our community should look like. And I do think that it is important. So I am going to support this tonight.
Yeah, me too. Very good. Council Lazo.
I agree with Councilor Rivas on what she's saying, but I've heard this before. In 1973 or 74, we were the All-American City, and then after that, the studies all were done, and housing was the answer instead of commercial properties on Main Street. So what ended up happening was a lot of the second floors that were commercial, lawyers' offices, dentists' offices, all became apartments because apartments were where the money was on the federal state level. So we ended up being more of a bedroom community downtown. Then all of a sudden the businesses on the first floor started moving out, and then our parking lots, who was created for commercial, ended up for the residential. So go easy in what you think is going to happen. It sounds good when they present it, and then when you own it, you don't like it. And I think that's what happened to us in some of the past doings on low and mod housing. So for myself, it's just a personal, what I've experienced in my life in Southbridge, and we went the wrong way. Thank you.
Very good. We have a motion on the floor. There being no further discussion, all those in favor? Opposed? 5-3, the motion passes. Very good. Item number 22. Vote to approve a transfer request for $2,842 from account number 0940000-574000-0145, insurance deductible, to number 0940000-57400, insurance, property and liability, to cover the cost of fire department and DPW equipment and DPW replacement vehicles added to the insurance policy.
Second.
Motion by Councilor Dow, second by Councilor Steves. Councilor Steves.
We recommended this unanimously. It's kind of kind of catching up to the cost of the insurance policies, and we didn't have enough set aside for them to cover them, so we need to add to it.
Any discussion? Councilor Marchetti.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through who? I don't know who I'm going through, or to who. But the information that we got after the fact, I just was curious, have we actually purchased all these items? Because I don't think I see a Honda generator anymore. The Honda generator, was that for the community center? I think it was. I don't see it. I don't think we've even purchased these things yet, so just curious why we're insuring something that hasn't been purchased. Thank you.
So with the two attachments that were submitted later this afternoon, backup number, there was one backup document, and then there was a backup document number 2. It was submitted around 3:30 this afternoon. The original document for the original transfer that was done back in February, there was a misinterpretation of the bill, where it was $1,500, and that was presumed to be a credit, and which would have covered backup number 2 that was submitted. However, that $1,500 is a charge, which now we owe the balance of that $1,500, and then we owe this second invoice that had cost adjustments for coverages, which was a replacement vehicle for the DPW. There was a Ford F-350 on the DPW. There was a Ford for the DPW. There was a Ford F-450 also for the DPW, and a trailer item for the water department. So that was an additional billing for that. And the credit that was, the part of the invoice that was presumed to be a credit that was misinterpreted, which is actually a balance owed, was for an unscheduled police equipment, which is... It actually doesn't list what the item is on that. But it's item number 37 that's listed, which can be obtained from the treasurer's office because they have the record.
So I guess I'm a little confused on this one, because the information that we got today was for some Motorola radios, for a Honda generator, and some unscheduled police equipment, which I don't know what that is exactly. That's what we got received today. The
Yeah,
other
I don't
vehicles,
have the listing of what the unscheduled police equipment is, but that was the misinterpretation that was presumed to be a credit on this listing of invoices, which isn't actually a credit to us, it's a balance that we owe. So I would actually have to go to the treasurer's office to obtain a list of what that unscheduled equipment is for the police department. Because that credit, had that been a credit, that credit balance would have covered the second backup item, which was an invoice for $1,200, because that presumed $1,500 credit would have covered that cost. But in reality, we owe that $1,500 because it's not a credit, which in turn, now we owe this full invoice.
and the Honda generator,
I believe that was for either the fire station or the community center. It was one or the other.
I don't think we've purchased that yet, though, have we?
I actually don't have that in my backup.
Well, that's what I received today. That's what I received in my email this morning. Backup material for agenda item number 22.
In the email this morning, that was probably the previous transfer, and this is the corrected.
Okay.
That's my guess. Because I don't have that in front of me.
It's a little confusing to me. I don't know if you want to continue with this or postpone it. I don't know. If we owe it, we owe it. It's a little confusing.
It's my understanding that the way I understand it from Christine's explanation is that the equipment was bought, and that when the bill was sent by the insurance company, because we had to insure it, when the bill was sent, it was misread. And that basically we're just correcting the misreading of the bill. That's what I understand. Is that correct?
So the original invoice
Yeah.
is 4 pages long.
Okay.
The initial fourth page was a credit, so we did the original transfer we did was to cover those 3 pages.
The first 3
Because
pages.
the fourth page was presumed to be a credit,
When it was in fact part of
but
the bill. bill.
it's in fact a balance owed.
The balance owed. All
So
right.
we needed to do an additional transfer to cover that additional balance,
Okay.
which had the fourth page been a credit, it would have covered the second invoice.
Okay.
But because we owe that fourth page, we then owe for the second invoice.
I get it. All right, I understand that.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All those in favor? Opposed? Unanimous of all present. Thank you, Christine. Item number 23, vote to accept a donation of $500 from the Lions Club to the Recreation Department in support of pickleball programs.
So moved.
Motion by Councilor Lazo, second by Councilor Ryan. Councilor Montigny.
This was recommended unanimously at subcommittee today.
Thank you. Would you like to speak to the donation?
Absolutely. Pickleball has been probably since I've been here of June of 2021, the one that has had the most people come together and do. Maybe Tom Brady is to thank for that, but we had it 5 days a week at the community center for 5 or 6 months. Not only was it sometimes more full, parking lot than voting days that I've seen. They did a fundraiser and raised $1,400 in their own right for the community center. So a huge benefit to us, getting a lot of foot traffic in there and a lot more support for the senior center. Now they're looking for a place outside. We're narrowing down. It's probably going to be Charlton Street, the little ice rink area, and they seem it's suitable. DPW is more than willing to help paint it, but they do need some money for supplies. They've been chatting with the Lions Club, and the Lions Club was more than happy to help out.
Council Oswald.
I'd just like to say pickleball is probably the hottest thing going. I see it in all the communities that I work in. And utilizing that skating rink, or what there was going to be a rollerblade, then it was going to be flooded. It was designed for all dying things. I think that's a great place for pickleball. You know, I mean, I think, you know, if we could work on some lighting or something like that in the future, you know, for the night play, you would, I mean, I'm telling you, I cannot believe how many citizens, when I go past Recreation Area in Southbridge, at 8 o'clock in the morning, the place is packed.
They are usually morning birds.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Keep up the good work.
Anyone else? I'd like to thank the Lions Club for their donation. They're wonderful citizens. They help the community in numerous ways over and over and over again. And this is just one more example of their generosity. And I definitely appreciate that. So thank you to the Lions Club. All those in favor? Opposed? Unanimous of all present.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 24, vote to approve a library transfer request for $2,500 from account number 001-610-511000, salaries and wages permanent, and for $3,500 from 001-610-511700, salaries and wages part-time, totaling $6,000 to be transferred into account number 001-610-521100, natural gas, to cover unanticipated increased utility charges. Motion by Council Lazo, second by Council Steves. Councilman Tigney.
Thank you. This is recommended unanimously today, and I'd like to thank Margaret Morrissey for all of her extra due diligence she did on this matter. Thank you.
Any questions, Councilor? Would you like to speak to it?
Just very briefly, I'd just like to say that we had unanticipated increases, as everybody's experiencing in the community. In this instance, we are experiencing a 2.391 per unit increase, and it's just something we couldn't sustain with the budget that we have. So I would appreciate if you can allow us to move some monies that we have left over in salaries due to positions that weren't filled for some time, and if we can move that money to paying for this unanticipated cost, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Very good. All those in favor? Opposed? Unanimous of all present.
Thank you.
Thank you, Margaret. Item number 25, reading the amendments to Southbridge zoning bylaw, section 5, dimensional regulations, and vote to adopt said bylaw amendment. Second reading, May 8th, 2023. They're going to be read via a tape from the previous meeting without objection from the council.
Nope.
Very good.
Under 5.2, general provisions, A, strike out A. In residential zones, R1, R2, R3, lowercase m, and then there's more than one principal use on a lot is prohibited. Strike out unless the additional areas for each unit is excess of 1, and strike out for multifamily R3 only. General provisions under 5.2, again, B, computation of lot area, the computing the area of any non-residential lot, no part of a public or private way, strike out, and no part of a pond, certified vernal pool, or perennial stream or river. Just check it with the town planner. We're gone? Okay, thank you. All right, under 5.2.1, supplemental lots, regulations, A1, under lot frontage. Minimum of lot frontage required. Every newly created, which is new, newly created, added, lot must have at least the minimal frontage set forth in Table 2 for the district in which the lot is located on a street as defined in Section 2 of this bylaw. Add in, required frontage for rear lots shall be minimum of 50 feet. Under R1, front setback begins where the lot meets the minimum lot frontage required under Table 2. Number 521A2, we're adding in on the second line, sideline of so the whole paragraph is measurement of lot frontage. Frontage is measured in a continuous line along the strikeout sideline of the, and continue on with street right-of-way between the point of intersection of the side lot lines, which is the street right-of-way line. The measurement of a lot frontage excludes jogs in the street with strikeout backup strips, and then the rest of the sentence is, and other irregularities in the street line. Under 3, access, an owner shall provide a means of access for vehicles from the frontage to a principal building for emergency services, strikeout 4, and then it goes on deliveries, and 4, again, strikeout off-street parking. All access to lots shall be through the lot frontage, strikeout, except the DPW director or designee may approve access over another property line if the applicant demonstrates the DPW director or designee satisfactions that such other access is a safer alternate. But add in now, no more than 2 rear lots shall have a contiguous frontage. Next page, under 5 TAC 2. It'll be 5.2.1 C2. Added in on the last part of that paragraph is unless specifically permitted in this bylaw, and strike out 2 at the bottom of that. So it should be 1 and 2. D, corner visibility. Under D2, we're striking out the word that, where it says provided that where, so we're striking out the word that. Under E, maximum building height shall be determined, strike out as defined in Section 10, adding in by Table 2 in this section. Limitations of the height shall not apply to belfries, chimneys, flag, add in limited to 110% of the height of the structure on the property. Or radio poles, strike out gas holders, grain elevators, add in silos as well. Water towers, strike out nor to the bulkheads, hose towers. And then elevator enclosures, water tanks, strike out scenery lofts or scenery towers, nor to strike out churches or municipal or institutional buildings. Under 5.2.2, transition, under A, strike out side yards and rear yards for that portion of a lot which adjoins the boundary line of a more restricted districts than that in which the lot is located. Side yard and rear yard requirements shall be the same as those which apply to lots in the more restrictive districts. Add in there, though, proper buffering either by 10-foot plant strip and or adequate fencing is required. See Section 7.2.4D. The following under 5.2.2, letters B and C are all stricken out. So those paragraphs say B, strike out setback. For that portion of a lot which fronts on the same street within 100 feet of the boundary line of a more restrictive district than that in which the lot is located, setback requirements shall be the average between the requirements for the less restricted district and that which applies to the lots of the more restricted districts. And C is strucken out, building height, a building on a lot adjoining or within 50 feet of the boundary line of a more restrictive district than that in which the lot is located shall conform to the height regulations of the more restrictive district. Again, B and C are stricken out. Under the Table 2, under 5 TAC 5, district, let's see, I'll go line by line if I can here. Single family R1 lot, we're adding in with water and sewer. Under stories, maximum building height, stories, we're striking out 2.5. Next line down, lot without, we're adding lot without water and sewer. We're adding in there under minimum lot area, 43,560. Minimum frontage is now 175. Minimum setback is 50, 20, and 35 on front, side, and rear. Feet, 35. Next line down, adding in rear lot with water and sewer. Again, under minimum lot area is 43,560. Minimum frontage is 50 feet. Driveway, 175 interior width. Adding in there under minimum setbacks. Front is 50, side is 20, and rear is now 35. And then maximum building height is 35. And then adding in, next line down, rear lot without water and sewer. Minimum area square footage is 130,680. Minimum frontage would be 50 feet on the driveway, 250 in the interior width. Minimum setback under front, side, and rear now say 50, 20, 35. Maximum building height is now 35. Accessory structure, under minimum setback, instead of 30, it's now 50. And under maximum building height is now 20 instead of 35. And stories has been stricken out at 1.5. Under two-family R2 lot, under maximum building height, stories, 2.5 has been stricken out. Accessory structure under maximum building height, again, is from 35 to 20 and stricken out 1.5, 1.5. Multiple family or R3, allowed residential use, set 2,500, it's going to be now 5,000. Central core CC, multifamily, we're going to add next to multifamily is residential. Next line down, mixed under central core, mixed use building, under minimum setback, instead of 10 it's now 0, side 10 is stricken out, 0 now, and I think it was 20, and is now 0 as well. And then under maximum lot coverage is 70 stricken out, and then 100%. Under all other uses, again, the minimum setback is 0, 0, 0 under front, side, and rear. And then under maximum lot coverage is now 100% instead of 70. Under retail businesses or RB or general businesses GB, all uses under maximum lot coverage is now 50 instead of 20. And mixed use building is now 50 instead of 25. Next page, 5 6. District per unit is now 5,000 instead of 2,500. And other notes to table 2, B is now, the original B is now stricken out where it says on a corner lot only the front of the building must meet requirements. The side street line shall be considered the side property line. However, if the garage is constructed on the side street, it must be set back the greater of 20 feet. And number 2, the side building line of the principal building on the lot. And then, so B is struck out, a new B has been replaced, and it states front, side, and rear setbacks for commercial ground mount solar photovoltaic installation of up to 70 kilowatts on property 5 acres or less are 7, and they also added feet there now too as well.
All right, so we'll start with 9.1.2, overlay district defined. It will now read, the floodplain district is herein established as an overlay district. The district includes all special flood hazard areas within the town of Southbridge designated as Zone A, AE, AH, AO, or A99 on the Worcester County Flood Insurance Rate Map firm dated January 23rd, 2023, as amended, issued by the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, for the administration of the National Flood Insurance Program. The exact boundaries of the district shall be defined by the 1% chance-based flood elevation shown on the firm and further defined by the Worcester County Flood Insurance Study, FIS, report dated January 23, 2023, as amended. The firm and FIS report are incorporated herein by reference and are on file with the town clerk, planning board, building official, conservation commission, and board of health. What has been struck out from that was the floodplain district is herein established as an overlay district. The underlying permitted uses are allowed provided that they meet the requirements of this section 9.1 and that those of the Massachusetts State Building Code dealing with construction in floodplains. The floodplain district includes all special flood hazard areas designated as Zone A/1-30 on the Southbridge flood insurance rate maps firm and the flood boundary and floodway maps dated March 15, 1982 on file with the town clerk, planning board, and zoning enforcement officer. These maps, as well as the accompanying Southbridge flood insurance study, are incorporated herein by reference. 9.1.3, base flood elevation and floodway data. We now have section A reading in zones in zones A, A1-30, and AE, along water courses that have not had a regulatory floodway designated. The best available federal, state, local, or other floodway data shall be used to prohibit encroachments in floodways, which would result in any increase in flood levels within the community during the occurrence of the base flood discharge. What has been struck out from that is floodway data in Zone A and AE along water courses that have not had a regulatory floodway designated. The best available federal, state, local, or other floodway data shall be used to prohibit encroachments in floodways, which would result in any increase in flood levels within the community during the occurrence of the base flood discharge. The old A has now been changed to B. In zones, and we're adding in zones A1-30 and AE along water courses that have a regulatory floodway designated on the town's firm encroachments are prohibited, including fill, new construction, substantial improvements, and other development within the adopted regulatory floodway unless it has been demonstrated through hydrologic and hydraulic analysis performed in accordance with standard engineering practice that the proposed encroachment would not result in any increase in flood levels within the community during the occurrence of the base flood discharge. And the next part was changed to C accordingly from B. Then we are changing 9.14, adding designation of the community floodplain administrator. The town of Southbridge hereby designates the position of Director of Public Works to be the official floodplain administrator for the town. Then 9.1.5, notification of watercourse alteration, reads, if the town acquires data that changes the base flood elevation in the FEMA mapped special flood hazard areas, the town will, within 6 months, notify FEMA of these changes by submitting the technical or scientific data that supports the changes. Notification shall be submitted to, and then it lists the communities. That's not changing, but we're striking out the words notify in a riverine situation the following of any alteration or relocation of a watercourse. 9.1.5 is now 9.1.6, development regulations, and we're adding in the middle, I'll just read the thing here, special permits. In the floodway designated on the flood boundary and floodway map, no structure or building shall be erected, constructed, substantially improved, or otherwise created or moved. No earth or other materials dumped, filled, or otherwise created or moved. No earth or other materials dumped, filled, excavated, or transferred. And the language we're adding is right after the comma and transferred says, including new construction or changes to existing buildings, placement of manufactured homes, placement of agricultural facilities, fences, sheds, storage facilities, or drilling, mining, paving, and any other development that might increase flooding or adversely impact flood risks to other properties. In that same section, at the end, 3 is broken up into 2 pieces now, where the ending of number 3 is now number 4. The planning board may specify such additional requirements and conditions it finds necessary to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the people and the occupants of the proposed use. Then we're adding section 5 to that, which is the town's permit review process includes the requirement that the proponent obtain all local, state, and federal permits that will be necessary in order to carry out the proposed development in the floodplain overlay district. The proponent must acquire all necessary permits and must demonstrate that all necessary permits have been acquired. Adding section 6 says, in A zones, in the absence of FEMA, BFE data, and floodway data, the building department will obtain, review, and reasonably utilize base flood elevation and floodway data available from a federal, state, or other source as criteria for requiring new construction, substantial improvements, or other development in Zone A, and as the basis for elevating residential structures to or above base flood level, for floodproofing or elevating non-residential structures to or above base flood level, and for prohibiting encroachments in floodways. Adding section 7 says within zones AO and AH on the firm, adequate drainage paths must be provided around structures on slopes to guide floodwaters around and away from proposed structures. Then the old number 4, which is now number 8, is going to say in A1-30, AH, and AE zones, all recreational vehicles to be placed on a site must be elevated and anchored in accordance with the zone's regulations for foundation and elevation requirements, or be on the site for less than 180 consecutive days, or be fully licensed and highway ready. Now in section B, after 1, 2, 3 here, it's going to say a variance from these floodplain bylaws must meet the requirements set out by state law and may only be granted if 1, good and sufficient cause and exceptional non-financial hardship exists. 2, the variance will not result in additional threats to public safety, extraordinary public expense, or fraud or victimization of the public. And 3, the variance is the minimum action necessary to afford relief. And we have struck out the language, any variances from the provisions and requirements of the above referenced state regulations may only be granted in accordance with the required variance procedures of those regulations. We are adding, if the state issues variances to the flood resistant standards as found in the state building code, the community will use this text for local adoption. The town will request from the State Building Code Appeals Board a written or audible copy of the portion of the hearing related to the variance and will maintain this record in the community's files. The town shall also issue a letter to the property owner regarding potential impacts to the annual premiums for the flood insurance policy covering that property, in writing over the signature of a community official that, lowercase I, the issuance of a variance to construct a structure below the base flood level will result in increased premium rates for flood insurance up to amounts as high as $25 for $100 of insurance coverage, and 2 lowercase i's, such construction below the base flood level increases risks to life and property. Such notification shall be maintained with the record of all variance actions for the reference development in the floodplain overlay district. We'll be adding 9.1.7, abrogation. The floodplain management regulations found in this floodplain overlay district section shall take precedence over any less restrictive conflicting local laws, ordinances, or codes. We'll be adding 9.1.8, disclaimer of liability. The degree of flood protection required by this bylaw is considered reasonable but does not imply total flood protection. And finally, 9.1.9, severability will be added. It will say if any section, provision, or portion of this bylaw is deemed to be unconstitutional or invalid by a court, the remainder of the ordinance shall be effective.
Under adult daycare, strike A and lowercase s and add a capital S. 10-2, under substantial or significant portion, strike the terms substantial or significant portion as used herein shall mean any of the following. Under agriculture exempt as defined in add M to MGL. Under agriculture non-exempt, adding horticulture, uses, viticulture, and silviculture. And under automobile service station, striking NY, and so that it says a building. Under 10-3, boarding house, adding a dwelling providing rooms for rent to not more than 4 unrelated people paying rent on a weekly or monthly basis with shared cooking, eating, and sanitation facilities and adequate means of emergency egress, as well as parking as determined by the zoning enforcement officer and subject to annual licensure by the town council. Under building height, striking lowercase t and adding capital T. Under story, half, striking lowercase t and adding a capital T. 10-4, under camp, striking vacation, striking land use or intended to be used, let, or rented for occupancy by campers traveling by automobile or otherwise, or for occupancy by house, trailers, tents, or movable or temporary dwellings, rooms, or sleeping quarters of any kind. Sturbridge definition, also being struck out, so that it reads, a parcel of land used or intended to be used, let, or rented for temporary short-term occupancy, not to exceed 90 days, by campers or transient tourists utilizing tents, recreational vehicles, or other types of movable or temporary shelter. Striking child care center, and as defined in GLC 15D, Section 1A. 10-5, under dwelling unit, striking out means so that it reads, a single unit providing complete independent living facilities for 1 or more persons, including permanent provisions for living, sleeping, eating, cooking, and sanitation. Under educational institutional terms, adding the following terms relate to educational institutional uses. Under child care center, striking child care center so that it reads, staff members provide care for groups of children often placed in classrooms by age as defined in MGL C15D Section 1A. Under hospital, striking hospital or at the end so that it reads, an institution providing primary health services and medical or surgical care to persons, primarily inpatients, suffering from illness, disease, injury, deformity, and other physical or mental conditions, and including as an integral part of the institution related facilities such as laboratories, outpatient facilities, training facilities, medical offices, and staff residencies. Under nursing home and care facility, striking nursing home at the end so that it reads, any institution, whether conducted for charity or profit, which is advertised, announced, or maintained for the express or implied purpose of providing 3 or more individuals admitted thereto with long or short-term resident, nursing, convalescent, or rehabilitative care, supervision, and care for ambulatory persons or retired home care for elderly persons. Long-term care facility shall include convalescent or nursing homes, rest homes, infirmaries, and sanitariums. Under library, striking an information atheneum in which literary, musical, artistic, or reference materials such as books, manuscripts, recordings, or films are kept for use but not for sale. Libraries often include classrooms, computer sciences, and host community activities so that it reads, or adding a collection of resources in a variety of formats that is organized by information professionals or other experts who provide convenient physical, digital, bibliographic, or intellectual access and offer targeted services and programs with the mission of educating, informing, or entertaining a variety of audiences and the goal of stimulating individual learning and advancing society as a whole. Under museum, striking library or museum so that it reads, a public or quasi-public facilities, including aquariums, arbor- I can't pronounce that word.
Arboretums?
Arboretums, art galleries, and exhibitions.
Arboretums.
Arboretums, okay. I learned a new word. And exhibitions, botanical gardens, historic sites, and exhibits, archive, libraries, and planetariums with no retail sales activities other than artwork, an accessory gift / bookshop, and/or accessory food sale. Striking private for-profit educational use and adding private for-profit educational use, accredited or non-accredited educational facilities owned and/or operated by a private company or business that usually does not receive state or federal aid and are often managed by investors and stakeholders. Striking public or private nonprofit educational use and adding public or private nonprofit educational use, educational facilities owned by a nonprofit organization that often receives state or federal aid. Striking religious use and adding religious use, any use including services, meetings, education, and any other activities conducted by or for a religious group or organization. Under family, striking not more than 3, and striking this definition shall not preclude more than 3 unrelated people with disabilities as defined in the Americans with Disabilities Act of 1990 as amended occupying a group home. Under farm, adding including above-ground tanks for farm vehicles and machinery. Under floodplains related terms, the following terms apply to floodplains. Development, any man-made change to improve or unimproved real estate, including but not limited to building or other structures, mining, dredging, filling, grading, paving, excavation or drilling operations, or storage of equipment or materials. Floodway, the channel of the river, creek, or other water source, and the adjacent land areas that must be reserved in order to discharge the base flood without cumulatively increasing the water surface elevation more than a designated height. Functionally dependent use, a use which cannot perform its intended purpose unless it is located or carried out in close proximity to water. The term includes only docking facilities, port facilities that are necessary for the loading and unloading of cargo or passengers, and shipbuilding and ship repair facilities, but does not include long-term storage or related manufacturing facilities. Highest adjacent grade, the highest natural elevation of the ground surface prior to construction next to the proposed walls of a structure. Historic structure, any structure that is A, listed individually in the National Registry of Historic Places, a listing maintained by the Department of Interior, or preliminarily determined by the Secretary of Interior as meeting the requirements for individual listing on the National Register. B, certified or preliminary determined by the Secretary of the Interior as contributing to the historical significance of a registered historic district or a district preliminarily determined by the Secretary to qualify as a registered historic district. C, individually listed on a state inventory of historic places in states with historic preservation programs which have been approved by the Secretary of the Interior. Or D, individually listed on a local inventory of historic places and communities with historic preservation programs that have been certified either, 1, by an approved state program as determined by the Secretary of Interior, or 2, directly by the Secretary of the Interior in states without approved programs. New construction, structures from which the start of construction commenced on or after the effective date of the first floodplain management code, regulation, ordinance, or standard adopted by the authority having jurisdiction, including any subsequent improvements to such structures. New construction includes work determined by to be substantial improvement. Recreational vehicle, a vehicle which is A, built on a single chassis, B, 400 square feet or less when measured at the largest horizontal projection, C, designed to be self-propelled or permanently towable by a light-duty truck, and D, designed primarily not for use as a permanent dwelling, but as a temporary living quarters for recreational, camping, travel, or seasonal use. Regulatory floodway, special flood hazard area, the land area subject to flood hazards and shown on a flood insurance rate map or other flood hazard map as Zone A, AE, A1-30, A99, AR, AO, AH, V, VO, VE, or V1-30. Start of construction. The date of issuance for new construction and substantial improvements to existing structures, provided the actual start of construction, repair, reconstruction, rehabilitation, addition, placement, or other improvement is within 180 days after the date of issuance. The actual start date of construction means the first placement of a permanent construction of a building, including a manufactured home on a site, such as pouring of a slab or footings, installation of pilings, or construction of columns. Permanent construction does not include land preparation, such as clearing, excavation, grading, or filling. The installation of streets or walkways, excavation for a basement, footings, piers, or foundations. The erection of temporary forms or the installation of accessory buildings, such as garages or sheds, not occupied as dwelling units or not part of the main building. For a substantial improvement, the actual start of construction means the first alteration of any wall, ceiling, floor, or other structural part of a building, whether or not that alteration affects the external dimensions of the building. Structure. For floodplain management purposes, a walled and roofed building, including gas or liquid storage tank that is principally above ground, as well as a manufactured home. Substantial repair of a foundation. When work to repair or replace a foundation results in the repair or replacement of a portion of the foundation with a perimeter along the base of the foundation that equals or exceeds 50% of the perimeter of the base of the foundation measured in linear feet, or repair or replacement of 50% of the piles, columns or piers of a pile, column or pier supported foundation. The building official shall determine it to be substantial repair of a foundation. Applications determined by the building official to constitute substantial repair of a foundation shall require all existing portions of the entire building or structure to meet the requirements of 780 CMR, as amended by Mass in 9th edition BC. Variance, a grant of relief by a community from the terms of floodplain management regulation. Violation, the failure of a structure or other development to be fully compliant with the community's floodplain management regulations. A structure or other development without the elevation certificate, other certifications, or other evidence of compliance required in 60.3 is presumed to be in violation until such time as that documentation is provided. Under kennel, commercial, striking define so that it reads an establishment used for boarding, holding, daycare, overnight strays, or training of dogs that are not the property of the owner of the establishment, at which such services are rendered in exchange for consideration and in the absence of the owner of any such dog. An establishment engaged in the business of breeding animals for sale or exchange to wholesalers, brokers, or pet shops in return for consideration. However, kennel shall not include an animal shelter or animal control facility, a pet shop license under Section MGL, Chapter 129, Section 39A, a grooming facility operated solely for the purpose of grooming and not for overnight boarding,
or an individual who temporarily and not in the normal course of business boards or cares for animals owned by others. 10-9, under lot corner, adding a lot having frontage on 2 or more streets shall have 2 or more front yards, each of which shall comply with the requirements of the front yard provisions. In no case shall any building or structure be located closer to the sideline of a street than the minimum required front setback.
Very good. We made it through. Item number 28, Council's Forum. Councilor Dow.
Nothing at this time.
Very good.
I gotta wake up first.
Councilor Steves.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to reiterate again that we're doing the forum on Thursday for town council candidates, all 8 of them, and school committee. Hopefully they will come. It starts at 7 here in the chambers. It will also be broadcast on the cable channel and on the YouTube page and on the on-demand page on the town's website after the fact. And also, I wanted to mention that I had the chance to go to the first of the concerts in the parking lot this past week, and it was good. And the whole list is on the civil space page. I think there's maybe one of them still missing. A couple that still haven't been filled in yet. So you should check that out. It's nice to see that we are in the process again, as we did last year, of having some live music down there that will lead into the concerts on the Common and other events going on. So it's nice to start bringing people downtown, and hopefully they will come down and turn out and just check it out. And there's all kinds of stuff coming down. Some of it's Latino, some of it's foreign, some of it's African, some of it's country, some of it's rock. So there's a quite broad spectrum of stuff going on down there. That's all I have.
Very good. Before we go on, I want to apologize to Mr. Rumsey. I didn't give the council a chance to ask questions if they had questions regarding the amendments that were read this evening. Thank you, Mr. Rumsey. You put in good work, and I appreciate your being here to the very end. Thank you so much. We'll continue with Council's Forum. Councilor Ryan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. First, just to reiterate, Councilor Steves, there will be a forum this Thursday. I'm eager to be participating in it. I'm eager to hear what everyone has to say. It's always interesting. I love elections because you get to really hear what people are thinking and what they want to do for this community. So I'm excited for that. I actually had a really fun time at the carnival this weekend. I just want to thank everybody involved for having that happen. It was quite nice getting to relive my own childhood a little bit. Getting a snow cone, I felt like I was 5 again. But it was a really nice time, and it was nice to see everybody out and having fun. And tonight, on top of it, with the rail trail presentation, I'm really happy to see that we're starting to do events and have opportunities for families and young people to go out and have fun. Especially after the pandemic when everyone was trapped inside. This is so critical right now, and everybody took full advantage of that at the carnival, and I was really happy to see. And finally, make sure everybody you turn in for the budget hearing at 6 p.m. on May 22nd. I will be here. I don't want to hear any excuses. I'm here on my birthday. So if you care and you want to be here, be here. And that's it, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Very good. Councilor Rivas.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. I also want to thank the Southbridge Police Association and all of their partners for putting together the carnival this weekend. It was amazing and great to see families out in the community enjoying themselves. The little ones kind of really excited about the rides, and just hearing the screams of joy, and people having a great time in our community. So that was really encouraging. I also stopped into the concerts on the Common to see the casters, and just like Councilor Steve said, there are a variety of different bands that are going to be there. It was a beautiful day. There were, nice group of people enjoying, families and couples, and just a variety of people enjoying themselves, in different parts of our community, right? So the concerts at Central Street Plaza, the carnival by the police station. It's really nice to see multiple things for different people to enjoy different things in our community. So that was a great thing to see. I was out yesterday with Councilor Ryan on Hamilton Street. We were talking to some business owners and residents about just different things in the community. We did hear a lot about the roads, from business owners on the Hamilton Street area. They are really excited to hear about the rail trail, so it was nice to hear more details come out tonight. That is sort of a neglected area in our community, and the business owners there, the residents, they do notice, and they do notice what we give attention to, and they're really happy to hear about some of the projects that we have been putting forward. So that was great. It was nice to connect with people and ask them about, what they'd like to see in the next town manager, just different things that we're working on, and really get a sense from different parts of our community as to what they're looking for in our future. I'm very encouraged to hear from the EHS chair about the Thrive Act. I appreciate that we're following through with my suggestion. And I'm also glad to report that Senator Fatman's aide, who was here at the Council of the Whole, did follow up with me in an email and attended a meeting on the legislation, and will be following up with us on whether Senator Fatman will be joining and supporting that legislation at the state level. So stay tuned. I will keep tabs on that. As well as, again, we are very open to talking with residents, students, teachers who want to come forward and have information and talk to us about their experiences. I think it is really important for us as counselors to hear from people in the community. I was very fortunate today to be at Southbridge High School to take part in a voter registration drive. I'm happy to say I registered 8 students during 2 lunch periods, and the students were really engaged as to asking different information. What is this for? Is this local? Is this federal? They had a lot of different questions, and they were very engaged. I did have a conversation with Principal Rains about coming in and talking to different groups of students about local elections, and I'd be happy to do that. But it was really encouraging to see the students asking questions and wanting to participate. So, thank you.
Very good. Councilor Lazo.
A couple of things. First of all, I would vote for Councilor Rivas out of the presentations of the bylaw. She did a great job. I got to give you guys a lot of credit. Good job. The carnival was outstanding. I had 50,000 hits on its Facebook page. There were a couple people that are not mentioned, Mr. Belanger and George Shenya. It was funny because it started by Mr. Belanger, who does amusements, and George Shenya, who works the amusements, who approached the chief and said, we haven't had a carnival in Southbridge in decades. Why don't we do this for the cops and kids? You can get $7,000 from the carnival and put it towards cops and kids. The chief said okay and put him on to the police association, which they got together. It was a win-win all the way around. I thought it was a great family day where they were walking for quite a distance to families, in droves of 5 and 6 and 10, and they were all enjoying it. And it was interesting because when you pull up on it, that one ride that goes over Mechanic Street was kind of thrilling. But again, I'd like to thank George Shenya and Mr. Belanger and the Cops and Kids group. They ended up making $7,000 for the kids, which I know everybody up here, we're always looking for things to do in Southbridge. That was a fantastic outing. Another thing, if anybody noticed the town cleanup, the Beautify Southbridge, it was amazing. The thing that I noticed was, the Board of Health did a fantastic job, but the student performance by the middle school and the high school. I mean, the high school, when they were cleaning up, usually they take bags and they pick up papers. Well, some of the boys, I guess, had trucks who picked up mattresses and sofas. So I think the community did a fantastic job. Kudos to the health department and all the coordinators that worked on it. Special thanks to all the students. One of the things tonight that bothered me, I give Mrs. Lapiori a lot of credit as a school committee member, and I praise the school committee for sticking together in trying to work with Mr. Villar. As we move forward with various things, you have the Thrive legislation, which I've read. I think I like half of it, and half of it I'm skeptical, but I think we have to support it because the number one thing is in a year we'll be out of receivership. But in listening to what the receiver said about the town council, that we are a Charlie Brown Lucy show, I didn't quite get that. I don't see that. I think we are a diverse group of people that have a lot of different beliefs. We might not agree with our politics, but I think as people, as Southbridgians, as councilors, we put our best efforts forward with what we know or what we think, and coming out with these statements about we need to work harder or we need to do all this. I've laid off of the receiver in the past year and a half, and I really look at it as it's time for Mr. Villar to hear from the people of Southbridge. That was the whole reason why we put the ballot question on. I think everybody in the communities that are in receivership knows it's a failed system. They never gave you the blueprint to get out of receivership, but they sure gave you a quick ride into it. So moving forward, I think we as a council and as a community have to go to the ballot, vote yes to take our schools back. I think we need to send a message loud and clear to Mr. Villar and the players in Boston that this is not working and we're ready to take our schools back over. They talk about training on school committee members. The training usually comes from the actual interaction with your superintendent, your curriculum coordinator, your finance director. Those are the people that go to the school committee meetings, recommend, and school each and every school committee member. That's how I learned how to be a school committee member. I got involved, did a lot of reading, but I think the experts in education, you know, when teachers come in front of you, or school nurses, and they tell you what their jobs are, you negotiate their contracts. There's a lot to being a school committee member. I always thought it was more difficult to be a school committee member than it was to be a counselor. But moving forward, I think Mr. Villar and the players in Boston need to hear from the town of Southbridge. They will hear on election day. And I give Gus a lot of credit with the forum that you're going to be putting on and the interviews that you're doing. It's a great election to see a lot of people running. Whether it's your candidate or somebody else's candidate. I remember the days when nobody ran for office. Everybody just put their name in and became a counselor. Here you are, you're looking at a variety of walks of life. Different people. They don't always agree, but I think their heart is in this right place, that they want to put the town first. They just have a different blueprint on how to get there. And that's why I always said you always have the right to disagree, but you don't have to hate anybody. You can dislike some politics, but you don't have to dislike the people. And that's going forward, that's the way I feel. This upcoming election, you have some young newcomers, you have some old horses still going in there that are incumbents that want to do it again. They're all good people. They all have good intents. Vote your conscience. The campaigns are in front of us. There's going to be candidates night. There's going to be newspaper articles on the candidates. And God knows these candidates are going to be working hard in the district. So moving forward, I think we have a good slate of people. Just vote your conscience, send 3 up, and we'll all work together. Thank you.
Very good. Councilman Tigney.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I was able to do a couple fun things this weekend, including, of course, stopping by the carnival, which even late on a Sunday afternoon after the 5th day, it was still packed. You could barely move, had to squeeze around people. So it was a real success. Also, kind of more of a county-wide thing, I was able to attend Polar Park, a game this Friday night, and it was spectacular. I'd never been since they've made it, and what a great thing for Worcester County, only a half hour away from here. Beautify Southbridge. Now, the following morning, woke up real early, get down there, and you see, like Councilor Lazo said, there's like 40 students from the middle school and another group from the senior class. And at first, I'm like, okay, this might actually be really good. And me and my dear friend Ariel Ortiz chose some of the streets that we knew would have less people on them that we could clean. And let me tell you, as I was sitting there, I never felt so good about just doing something to help. I mean, I've been fortunate enough to have a lot of different hats in my years here, and it's been great, all the different things you do for the town of Southbridge. But picking up trash early on a Sunday morning, who actually really wants to pick up trash, but I didn't want to stop by 11 o'clock. You know, we filled a couple bags, and it was really awesome, and I would love to do it again. And even Mr. Buxton said we need to do more of these. I think that's probably a good idea. But I came to this meeting really happy, but I have to address some of the comments that Dr. Villar made to Ms. Lapriori, and I might not be as politically astute about my comments as the previous speaker. I might have a little bit more passion here. But, you know, to say this town council has no idea what they're doing with their budget, I mean, first of all, that's offensive to our interim town manager, who has done nothing wrong, to Dr. Villar. This budget, when a year where we lose a finance director and the town manager, and now we have an interim come in and present us with everything we need on time, and we really don't even have that many issues with it, I mean, that's a disgrace for him to say. And we don't know what we're doing with the budget. At Education and Human Services, we unanimously recommended Dr. Villar's budget, which was higher than ever, extremely high. So I don't get where he comes out of left field saying that sort of thing. It's kind of just a stupid comment. But then you compare us to Charlie Brown and the Peanuts. I mean, you could compare his administration to a circus. We got guns in the high school, paying principals that over $100,000 a year, and they don't even call lockdowns when they know there's a gun in the school. You get all these former staff alleging these crazy scandals on Facebook lately, and the town council's to blame with bad budgeting? I mean, it doesn't make any sense. Shame on Dr. Villar and his evil comments. How can you be on the offense attacking this council right now at a time like this with all the crazy things that are happening in that school district? You've got to understand, people, the state-appointed school administration here is playing politics and using your children as the petri dish for their political experiment. I've had school committee members ask me to say this, not school committee members that are in attendance tonight, and I wasn't going to say it, but I was called and asked as the Education and Human Services Chair to ask Dr. Villar to please resign immediately. After today's comments, now I feel comfortable saying that. I mean, how can you sleep at night holding the town's youth over us hostage with negative comments about the town council? You're only hurting yourself and these kids. It doesn't hurt us to call us Charlie Brown cartoon show. I mean, before the voters of this town trample this administration, it is probably best if Dr. Villar resign at this point. There's going to be a huge mandate to take back our schools, and you have my word on that, and I'll eat my words if I'm wrong, but I doubt it. I mean, to Governor Healy, is this the kind of person that you want representing the Board of Elementary and Secondary Education back from their wish in January 2016 to take us over? I know Catherine Craven probably doesn't feel this way about it. She's always been a supporter of Southbridge. Is this what you think our students need? Shame on anybody who thinks that it's the right idea to let any of this rhetoric continue. We have a high special needs district with lots of diverse ethnicities, and it's borderline discrimination what's happening here. And with scandals and guns, this is now a dangerous situation. And our receiver is concerned with comparing our town to a bunch of cartoon characters. By allowing Dr. Villar to continue to work here, you, the state of Massachusetts elected officials, are putting our children literally in grave danger. Thank you.
Very good. Councilor Marquetti.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As everyone up here knows, I was in Washington, D.C. a couple weeks ago, and I did in advance let all our representatives know that I was there, wanted to talk to them about our infrastructure needs. And much to my surprise, Senator Warren's office did invite me to a meet and greet. And I have to tell you, Senator Warren is really a ball of energy. She's really a heck of a senator. She took time out. She was at a banking hearing. She had to go back and introduce some legislation, but she took time out to come and meet with her constituents. And I introduced myself just as Mike Marquetti from Southbridge, and I was there to talk about our infrastructure needs. She was very sincere. She asked her staff to look into it, try and find some funding for Southbridge. And I hopefully they will be able to find us some funding. I talked about our roads, sidewalks, our fire station. I don't want the fire station to hurt us really bad in our taxes, so I'm just looking for some funding sources wherever I can find it. And I know that other leaders in town have also talked to her office, so I'm not taking all the credit for anything here. I know Jack Jovan has talked to her, the fire chief has talked to her. I'm sure Councilor Ryan has talked to her. She seems to be very close with Elizabeth Warren. So I would just recommend any of the councilors up here, if you get a chance to go to Washington, D.C., please go, because it's a really interesting city to go and see the workings of our government. One funny story I just wanted to share. I went over to the National Gallery of Art, took a tour in the morning, some fantastic artwork there. And at lunchtime, my wife and I went down to see if we could get something to eat. And it was kind of crowded. I was walking. I just about ran over some guy. I was like, oh, Jesus, I'm really sorry, sir. And I looked up, and it was Senator Lindsey Graham. And I was like, I didn't even know what to say. I just said, hey, it's you. I said, how are you doing? And he said, I'm doing fine, sir, in his southern accent. My in-laws said I should have asked him for some money. But anyways, I just thought it was kind of a funny story while I was there. Very interesting town. We should charter a bus and we should all go there and see if we can get some funds from them. Anyways, speaking of our infrastructure, I have been getting a lot of calls on our conditions of our roads throughout town. The residents really want their roads improved this year. Hopefully, I'm going to have a meeting this Thursday and we can talk about some road improvements. And finally, today, my wife and I are celebrating our 30th wedding anniversary. I don't know how she's tolerated me all these years. I guess I'm just lucky. Anyways, I told her, the first 30 years is the hardest. After that, it'll get a lot easier. Anyway, I just wanted to wish my wife a happy 30th anniversary. Thank you. That's all I have.
Very good. Happy anniversary.
Thank you.
That's a great story. Item number 29, discussion of the next meeting date. Our next meeting is scheduled for Monday, May 22nd, 2023 at 7 p.m. here in the council chambers. Item number 30, adjournment.
Second.
Motion by Councilor Lazo, second by Councilor Ryan to adjourn. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Unanimous of all present. We are adjourned.